Hey, everybody. Hey, what's this now? What is up? It is the pre-show for Hey, did you see this one? We currently have 0 viewers, which is unacceptable.
What else is new?
Yeah.
What else is new? Yeah.
Is there like a waiting room? What did you expect?
No, this is the waiting room.
Yeah. Do you have like a link that you could put in the chat that I could like tweet out or whatever
Yeah. Let's look here.
on x.com?
On sex.com, which is what it's known as.
Yeah, X hamster. I man.
Jack's hand. What a pull that is.
Sure. I'm pulling all the time to X hamster.
I believe it. This is the Twitch. Oh, I put it in comments. Private chat. Whoops.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
It's like, I think it's fine in the comments too. Whatever.
Yeah, that's... yeah, that'll do. I just want to make sure I'm live on all these platformulas, and I'll do the read off. This is well, I'll play the little jingle for it. Where is it?
Yeah, what Grimoire are we opening?
It's the spooky one. The one that the pages are falling out of, and they're all greasy.
Oh, they're scattered into the multiverse.
Yeah.
The monsterverse.
Congratulations! You have successfully guessed the correct answer, which is the answer you provided. Congratulations!
That's right. Hello and welcome. This is the pre-show, as I just mentioned. Each week on the show or on social media, I put up a portion of the poster. Okay, pretty simple. I pop that poster up. I pop that puss. Nope, don't finish that sentence. And basically have people guess. And usually I was expecting nobody to get it. And the first picture that I used was slightly more zoomed in than the one I'm showing here. Nobody got it. And then I zoomed out, and as soon as people saw Cabal's like face, they were like, oh, that's it. So these are the people that got the answer correct this week. Friend of the show, former guest of the show, Craig Webster. He didn't really guess it, but he did say, ooh, Nightbreed, nice. And then I was like, what would you like your message or your plug to be for this week? And in quotations, he said, ooh, Nightbreed, nice. So that was fun. I have another one here that I had to take a picture of, because what I usually do is I like hide when people get it right, I have to hide it, or else, I don't want people to cheat. So Drew Hallam on the Facebook page of the Real Feels podcast, who I noticed actually joined on Instagram. I'm not sure if they stayed or not, but Drew says, we should take a lesson from Nightbreed of Midian. Let your freak flag fly. Shun society's prejudices. Fantastic film. Also, Clive Barker. Give us that sequel. So that's a good
Midian
point.
2?
Yeah.
It's in Hawaii.
He's a very sick man.
Yeah, he's not doing well.
I think they always talk about a TV show somewhere. Somebody's always developing a TV show.
Yeah, I think of like many properties, this one is well suited, but we'll talk about that during the show, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Here, I'll Instagram comments don't come through, so this is what I do here. This is what I do. I copy and paste it. And then I do a little bit of this. I do that. And then it posts 82 times. And then I put it up like that.
Nice. Hi to Real Feels Podcast.
Hello and welcome.
I do not know what feels I had during Nightbreed other than, huh?
Oh,
horniness?
Yeah, sure.
Is that a feeling?
Horniness for women who will destroy you.
It's true. There was a lot of weird kits in this movie.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna get some water before we go live.
Cool. I got a couple more reads to do here. Real Feel Podcast is posting over on Insta. If you want to come over and join us on Twitch or YouTube, they feed through a little bit better. But he said this as well. It's probably... I mean, it could happen.
I know what they mean. There's been talk of a TV show for about the past 25 years.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I don't know. It always seems close or not close, but it's odd. I do feel like, yeah, I don't know. It's obviously also delayed by the many cuts, which we'll get into, I think. Showing, I don't know, his vision.
If you watch the cut that I watched and just slice it up into like 6 segments, you got a TV show right there. That's a lot.
True.
Yeah, I think that I think that with the amount of monsters, this would work as a TV show. But of course, that's for the main part. We won't dwell on it too much here. But we appreciate you coming by, Real Feels. Drew, I assume that's who we're talking to. But just to finish up here, Gordon McDonald, who usually gets the movie correct, he says, Nightbreed, please. My shoutout is Everything is True, God's an Astronaut, Oz is Over the Rainbow, and Midian is Where the Monsters Live, and You Came to Die. Thank you.
Meat.
Sure.
Sam Gladstone, who's been on the show, he was on for the El Santo versus Dracula and Wolfman episode. We ran out of things. Remember when we did Fire in the Sky and we just ran out of things to talk about? It was another one of those episodes.
I didn't want to say, but I did want to say I'm glad I have not watched the worst movies you guys have done. I'm sure there's a good El Santo movie, but I sure haven't seen it.
Well, it's a weird Marvel MCU situation where all the you need to like see all of them to like understand what's going on.
Is that the one that also has like Lady Vampire? I've seen one where El Santo fights like a monster squad, but it includes a few monsters we don't think of in North America, like Cyclops.
No, that's a different one actually.
I think that's the one directly before the one we watched.
Yeah,
I went through the chronology and was like, "This is madness." He fights Dracula more than once. How?
Oh yeah, they're way old pals.
Yeah.
So he wanted to just promote his movie podcast called "Is It Camp?" It comes out every Saturday, and they're in the middle of their Pride Month programming, and also fucking vote. This is relevant for Canada and the United States. The United States has a important vote coming up. It is July the 4th. Happy 4th of July to our Canadian people or our American listeners. And also we have various elections coming up here in Canada at some point. Stay tuned.
It's time to stop the tax, right, Jason?
Uh-oh. Tim, fan of the show, guest of the show, friend of the show, Tim Covey. You are no longer Boone, you are a Cabal. And watch, hey, did you see this one? So thanks, Tim.
Oh, nice. I also wanted to say, if you want to see Santo fight Lady Vampire, it's Santo and Blue Demon versus the Monsters from 1970.
Hell yeah. And finally, before we get started on the show here, another podcast that I think is an interesting concept called Bucket of Chum. The Shark Movie Podcast, where they basically just cover sharksploitation movies.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. They have. I've noticed that they've expanded into other, they've expanded a little bit. They don't just only do that, but they do like sci-fi garbage.
Sure. I mean, if you're doing the sharks, you're gonna end up in like Shark Amityville for a while.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you might as well just keep it up.
But there's one that's like the priests go and like fight Bigfoot and try to like.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone's gonna defeat Bigfoot, it's a bunch of priests.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of the word that I'm looking for that the movie's called. It's like anyway, they go after Sasquatch. Yes, that's true. Real feels the loads of shark movies. Tubi is filled with them. That is absolutely correct.
I mean, they have. I still haven't seen, but the one I was looking forward to is the movie called Bad CGI Shark, where somebody throws a laptop into a pond and then a bad CGI shark comes out and starts fighting them.
That's at least creative. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It looked funny. It had a good trailer.
Even I, as an illustrator, went through my shark period. I have so many. I've got the Shark of Zorro. I've got the Shark Shank Redemption. I've got Zero Shark 30. Tinker Tailor Soldier Shark.
No.
Yeah, there's lots.
Yeah, so look out for that. We're going to be making shark movies for years.
I've already drawn all the posters.
Just to help with this.
The Chum Bucket.
The Bucket of Chum Shark
symbiotic.
Movie podcast. Yeah. That's amazing. Let's see here. Kind of like bad CGI gator. Is that yeah?
Yeah.
No,
I'm in the chat. Yeah, Real Feels is right. CGI Gator is the good trailer. CGI Shark doesn't look as good.
It's really just making anything now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to fill those services. Got to keep Tubi rolling, my friend.
Awesome. Well, we have TikTok just opened on its own. We got about 1 minute here. I'm gonna go grab a Brewsker Dew and pull up my laptopula, which has all of my amazing notes, and then we'll go live here in a moment.
I am adding damn sharks to my letterbox. Real Feels. I'm listening.
I watch about like 6 shit movies a week, so I'll add it mine too.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Wow, I thought he'd already gone. Well, I'm trying to think of the last shark one. Actually, you know what I watched? I watched the like weirdly serious shark one, Under Paris, the Netflix weird one. Yeah, much more serious than you would expect, but sharks attacking the Paris Olympics.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was kind of a good movie. It was, but not what I expected. I think we sat down wanting sharks attacking the Olympics, and we got like actually a serious one. Yeah, but it's not bad if somebody wants a heady shark commentary. And they didn't clean the Seine, so you know, Shark Movie 1, Emmanuel Macron 0.
Do I have my notes? I do. Okay. For a 3.5-hour movie, I took surprisingly little notes.
Yeah. Listen, there's stuff to talk about. I don't know the movie, but
No, yeah, I agree. I think
I did look at your recent runtime, and I'm like, oh, can we fill that?
I mean, we fill that with movies that don't have a lot to talk about, but
I guess so.
It all depends on who's on the show, I suppose.
Mm.
The last month, we've also had 4 guests, or sorry, 4 people on each episode.
Okay.
Let's stretch it a little bit.
Trying to see if there's any secret shark ones that I love. I mean, I'm a pretty big just because Real Feel seems really pretty well read on shark movies. I kind of enjoyed Bait 3D, the one where sharks get tidal waved into a supermarket. That's not so bad.
Oh,
Ghost Shark, I believe I watched once. That one was pretty fun. If that's the one where
Okay.
a shark comes out of a slip and slide.
Oh, fuck.
We're still talking about shark movies.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard all of it. I have my headphones on. I just that last one is just insanity. Okay, everybody can put start cam back on, and I'm gonna do the intro, and we're gonna fucking do a movie, a fucking long podcast about a long movie.
Jeez, so much cursing.
Fuck. Sorry. Okay, I'll stop the music. Stop. Oh yeah, shout out to Whitebat Audio who provides the pre-show music every week and also a lot of our intro music. And also follow Hey Did You See This One on pretty much everywhere you get your podcasts. Okay, this one, yes. Gather round. Okay, 5, 4. Gather round, freaks. This month, what we've done is we picked the Grimoire up to read out of it, and a bunch of pages fell out. And this month's page was all greasy and covered in blood and viscera. And, you know, gather around the internet fire and gather around the internet radio because we're bringing you the top quality show that happens each and every week here live on Twitch. It's Hey. Did you see this one?
With its covers tightly sealed and nightmares lurking within, the ancient book stirs ominously, whispering of unspeakable horrors and twisted sacrifices that have plagued the brave souls who dared to peek inside. But beware, for one of our sinister hosts has made a ghastly discovery. As the yellow pages were last turned, a malevolent truth unraveled. Pages are missing. Each one leading to a dark realm far more terrifying than the tome itself. A place where madness reigns, monstrous abominations lurk, and mayhem consumes all who venture too deeply. This chilling revelation serves as a stark reminder that monsters manifest in a myriad of forms. And Hey, Did You See This One? Invites you to brave the darkest corners of mind, matter, and mystery in search of the grimoire of familiar killers. Lost Pages.
Ooh, spooky.
So spooky.
What a spooky intro. Hello, everybody. Hello, it's Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Twitch and YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. Maybe it's also in the future, but this is, Hey, Did You See This One? The weekly movie roundtable discussion review reaction podcast video movie. we have started a new month. Thank you for everybody who came through last month for our Feminist Masterpiece Theater. We had 2 guests on each and every week, but we are back to 1 guest only, who I'll talk about in a moment here. My name is Jason R. Phillips. I'm joined as always by my illustrious co-host, also host. We're co-hosts. I'm not the host. Anyway, Stephen H.R. Geiger Waters from the future.
That's me.
We are, the new month is the Grimoire Familiar Killers, which is a bi-yearly thing that we do. We've been covering Friday the 13th, Freddy Goes to Hell, Jason Goes to Hell, Chucky Goes to Hell, all those movies coming up in October. We're going to be talking about the 6th iteration of all those films. But this month is the Lost Pages, where we wanted to do like a horror month and talk about some one-off movies that sort of have the same energy as like a Friday the 13th slasher. And then we kind of threw that out the window, and we're just doing 4 like horror movies, I think, is what we ended up with. Nightbreed, I think, of the 4 falls well into that. That is the movie we're covering this week, and we are congratulating our guest this week who's returning to the show. He is a host on the Hollywood Suite television channel, podcasts, internet present. Please welcome back to the show. It's Cam Maitland.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello to all my fans in movie land.
Thank you for coming back, Cam. It's good to see you. The last time I saw you was at a garden party on the weekend, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I may have been overserved.
I think you overserved yourself before you got to the function, but that's cool. That we like to have a good time. Nightbreed, folks. That is the movie we were talking about this week. I think before we get to anything as far as the movie goes, let's talk about our brief history with the film.
A brief history.
And here on Hey Did You See This One, the guest has the first word in most matters. So Cam, why don't you give us your brief history with Nightbreed?
Sure. I have like a bit of a weird history with the weird movie Nightbreed. In that I first dealt with it through a book, which was at my local library called The Nightbreed Chronicles, which was mostly like an art book / a book looking at all the makeup, showing all the monsters. So I saw that book well before I like knew what the movie was, and well before I would probably watch scary movies as a kid. There was like a fantasy and sci-fi art section in our library. I don't know. So I really liked the monsters, and eventually, I got to see it. It was well before the Cabal cut and stuff, well before any of these new cuts, which we'll get into, I'm sure. And kind of a movie that is nonsense in its original form, but I do I understand why people like it and why people are compelled by it, because it does, for instance, like we were talking about in the pre-show, you are like, they could make a TV show of it. There's so many dangling threads, even in the studio cut, that you're just like, it's like modern franchise poisoned film, because it just seems to be the first in a series that never happened. So that kind of sticks in your mind. And since then, I the first Cabal cut, when that came out, it played at TIFF. I went to it there with a bunch of the makeup artists in attendance. And then this week I saw the director's cut for the first time, and I took a swing at the Nightmare ultimate cut that Steve did, and I'm not that much of a fan.
Me neither, but for some reason I still did.
I mean, I'm curious. I do think that I can close my grimoire of is there a good version of this movie now? That's it.
Nice.
All right.
I think we're going to have a good conversation, because just before we can actually, you know what, Steve, go ahead and let us know about which version of the movie you watched also, I guess, if you weren't going to already.
Well, I was going to do that during my brief history, so I'll do
Yeah,
that.
cool.
Actually, like Cam, I was familiar of the monsters and makeup from a book when I was a kid as well, but I had no idea what it was. And years went by, and I, like so many movies that I watched way too young, it felt like a dream. Like I had conjured these images up in my mind, but it was planted there from some book that I looked at. I was a weird monster kid, so people would get me monster stuff when I was a kid, and often like Hollywood makeup books were a thing that were floating around in my house all the time. But actually, the first time I watched this was on recommendation from my friend Cam Maitland. When we first met, we were working together, and it was kind of before we started hanging out, before we sort of became friends. We were in that moment of like befriending somebody where you're just learning their interests, and this was one of the things that you had recommended to me, specifically the Cabal cut, and on your recommendation, I watched it, and I was like, okay, Cam gets the weird shit that I'm into. Cam knows what I like. And that was the first time that I watched it. It was probably in like 2015 or so. So it was before or it might have been close to when the director's cut came out, but before the nightmarishly long version that I watched yesterday. 3.5 hours of a lot more and a lot less somehow. But the ultimate cut. We'll talk about it when we talk about it, but I don't know if I can recommend it. That's my brief history.
And you watched the longest possible version.
I watched the ultimate Cabal cut, is what it is called.
Which is kind of unofficial, I think, because it seems like they put it together, but it lost funding, and there's kind of no release of it beyond YouTube and streaming and stuff.
And it also kind of feels a little bit unfinished.
And I mean,
the irony.
And I do think that because the director's cut is like Clive Barker had all the elements and was allowed to do what he wanted to do. It's kind of like, how much further do you need to go?
For me, it's basically like Steve mentioned that he wanted to do a Grimoire Lost Pages for this show, but pretty much since he joined the show 3 years ago. And shortly after we came up with the idea for the Grimoire, that's when you started kind of pitching the idea for this month. We didn't get around to it till now because we ended up doing the 2 Grimoires per year, blah, 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 whatever. Last year, you sent me the trailer for this movie, and I've been fascinated by the trailer for a year because it doesn't make any sense. It's just pictures of crazy things and crazy monsters and crazy makeup and crazy practical effects happening. And I think about it all the time, but I wanted to make sure that we did this for the Grimoire Lost Pages month, so I didn't watch it until this week. And we had a chat. We have a group chat, the 3 of us, and we were talking about which version should I watch, guys? And you guys basically said watch all the versions, the long and short of it,
or none of them.
Or none.
I mean, the other thing that's interesting is like I don't know how you would watch like the first version I watched. That version is essentially scrubbed from the world at this point.
So,
I think.
So the theatrical release, basically, you were like, that version is seen as kind of the worst version and also hard to find. The theatrical version, or the director's cut, sorry, is the version that sort of is the like, this is the introduction version, like watch this, and then there's a Cabal cut, and then an ultimate Cabal cut, which is like bonus scenes.
And I mean,
into the movie.
Part of it's kind of a mess because like the Cabal cut was made, the first Cabal cut that I went to at TIFF was made with what they thought were all the elements they had available. Then almost immediately, I think Clive Barker might have been there, or somebody said, hey, we're showing you this cut, but we just, in a castle that some musician works in, found a ton more stuff.
We found a video camera. With that
I think that they essentially found all shot footage that seems like.
They found like 90% of the original film prints, and they were able to,
because the director's cut is all film. There's nothing looking janky. Whereas even the Cabal cut I saw at TIFF had some of those VHS elements that I think still exist in the ultimate cut.
Yeah,
so it's like alternate takes and stuff. Yeah.
I think it's also like suspicious that it was found immediately. It was probably like they realized, we can maybe make more money.
Yeah. I do also think, as we've touched on, kind of that, Clive Barker being near death for the past like decade, he's tried to go back and like save a few, because I think Hellraiser 2 also has a different cut that he did. Yeah, I don't know. So I think he's sometimes trying to salvage the projects that were kind of taken away from him and, you know, not up to his standard.
Yeah, we'll see what the posthumous like ultimate versions of these movies are once he passes, and we get a, you know, some sort of collection. But for this movie, like I said, I just watched the director's cut over the last couple days. I watched in 2-hour-long sittings, and I had my finger on the ultimate Cabal cut. And today, Steve was like, "I watched it. It's maybe not the version you need to see." So I'm glad that I made the decision. But I'm glad that we have.
I never recommend watching movies in chunks. I'm anti-chunk movie watching. I say watch it,
except for the Goonies. Am I right, Steve? Then you're pro.
Then I'm pro chunk. Yeah. But this one I couldn't do it. I had to take breaks because it was too much to handle.
Yeah.
And I mean, I tried 10 or 15 minutes of that ultimate cut, and it's you can just tell it's like, oh, this is just trimmed. Like it's just stretching scenes on for so long, and then sometimes is like, we have no sound elements, so it's just going to show the script. Like, okay, there's a difference between a shooting script. It's essentially an assembly cut, which is interesting. Like, I don't know a single other movie where they've done that. But
X-Men Origins Wolverine without the CGI effects.
Oh yeah,
that appeared on the internet.
Yeah, it's the Mummy where there's no sound except screaming or whatever.
We'll do a month of those, and then lose our six viewers that we have.
I mean, save it for Empire of the Planet of the Apes when they're releasing the all humans, no CGI ape cut, which they said they're doing. So
that should be interesting.
Great. So we have discussed whether or not we want to actually continue doing the director talk segment unless it's pertinent. And I think this month it is pertinent. So let's do a little bit of director talk.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of
Sound. Speed. Action!
So this month is kind of special, or this week is kind of special because Clive Barker, famously known for the Hellraiser films, he wrote this book and he also directed this movie. So me and Steve were kind of talking about this before the show, and it's not one of those situations where he took a property and sort of did his adaptation. This, like, he just did several versions of his vision of this book that he wrote, kind of, right?
Yeah. It's actually, I took some time to watch the documentary on it too, to kind of understand more what up. But yeah, it does really seem like he's doing different versions. And I do think he was always somebody who was like a little mindful of what will and won't fly in a movie, both due to technological limitations and then also knowing that, like, you know, look at his adaptation of Hellraiser. I think it's like he knows how freaky he can get, pretty much. How edgy he can be.
I haven't read Cabal, but I've read a few of his other
Me
books.
neither.
And that's exactly it. Like I read Scarlet Gospel, which is one of his Hellraiser books, and just the stuff that he writes, you're like, you would never be able to do this, even with the advancement of CGI. But if you wanted to do it with practical effects, which I think he's a big proponent of or fan of, you wouldn't be able to do it. You just couldn't. Even imagining it when he's describing it to you as thoroughly as he can in the books, it's difficult to truly understand what he's getting at some points. But I like his world building more than anything else. His actual novels I don't find to be all that compelling, but the stuff that he's building within it I do like. I've often thought that a lot of the world building that he does would be really well suited for video games. Even Nightbreed really could make a video game.
I
think he did have a video game in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I think he's had a couple actually. He's he's kind of a multimedia dude.
I think with this film he made a very successful John Carpenter film. I think that this has that vibe kind of going on.
I mean, all of his movies feel like John Carpenter films, but at the same time, you could say the same thing about John Carpenter.
That's
vice
true.
versa.
And what I was going to say is that it feels like if a John Carpenter movie halfway through becomes Hellraiser, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the beginning with the police and the like sort of the setup for the story feels very like a John Carpenter film, and then it sort of starts to bleed into that the vibe you get from that first and second Hellraiser movies, where it just starts to get kind of sticky, you know? The movie gets very like, what is
Gooey, literally gooey.
Yeah. Goo coming out of every orifice.
Yeah.
And,
It's interesting, and I do think actually one of the most fascinating things watching the kind of short documentary that came out recently with one of the cuts is that Doug Bradley brings up, who is the Pinhead, and then in this he's the kind of Moses guy.
He's got gills on his face.
Yeah, they're eyeballs, but you don't find out till way too late. For it to look cool. You're like, oh, this is cool, right? As he's a corpse
dying.
But he pointed out that they shot Hellraiser 2, and Nightbreed within basically 3 years. So like, yeah,
they don't do that anymore.
No, but he also is like, it's a miracle any of them happened. Like, don't ask me to remember anything. He talks about how it was like, he's like, my character wasn't that important, but it was very hard to be in character because essentially he's like, I was getting in a car at the same time, taking the same route with the same makeup artist as being Pinhead, but I wasn't Pinhead. So he's like, I had to find a way to like prepare myself because it was all the Pinhead stuff.
And you have to be in makeup for.
Oh yeah, I mean, our man, apparently the guy, the Grimoire I come to talk about, Craig Schiffer, had to be in it for 7 hours for that Cabal makeup because it's also so early on in makeup technology that like, yeah, most of these guys were in it forever. So I also think, you know, that you can definitely knock this movie sometimes for how cheap it looks, but I think it's also like they were stretching the budget as much as they possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I have a question for you guys that you may know the answer to that I wasn't sure. Did they use miniatures a bunch in this? Because it seemed like when the truck crashes through the wall, like near the end, and falls down, it looks like a miniature set. Also, those bridges looked like, obviously,
there's tons of miniatures in this movie. Yeah.
I would say there's miniatures, but they also kind of all talked about that the big Midian set with the bridges was built at Pinewood and was pretty huge. Like, they all kind of say it was astonishing. And like, I mean, I guess Doug Bradley's probably one of the bigger actors. Although Craig Sheffer's been in a lot of stuff. And most of them said that it was kind of the biggest, grandest set they ever worked on in their entire careers.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Comparatively, like Hellraiser 1 is a pretty small, like there's the house is really the whole set piece, and that weird hallway that goes to hell or wherever.
Yeah. There's
not a whole lot. So that was probably quick. But that's a headier concept even than Nightbreed. Nightbreed, though, the magic of this film is that it seems like every time they do shots of Midian, there's a different monster. There's a new monster.
Yeah.
And I imagine in that 3-hour cut, we kind of discussed this.
I'll tell you right now, the 3-hour cut, the introduction to Midian when the female protagonist is making her way down through into Midian is so long. It's long. It's so long to the point that you get
looking
bored.
around corners.
You're like, I don't even care anymore. I've seen all the monsters I need. Let me just.
I mean, even in the director's cut, it's borderline the start of Beauty and the Beast of like, bonjour, like, sorry, just a monster walking here.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, very strange.
But I mean, this is also, you know, the early 90s and all through the 80s and even the 70s. Science fiction and horror movies, they all had these, not all of them, but like a large percentage of them have what I like to call the cantina sequence, which is when Luke Skywalker first goes into the cantina in Star Wars, and it's like, you know, and you're just seeing all the different aliens. That's basically what this scene is, except it's gross monsters that are bleeding everywhere, barfing up their own food and then eating it again or whatever. A tit man just made of tits. But you also have, you know, the Star Wars cantina, but, you know, like Mad Max and name it if you got it. I was going to ask you guys if you have like a favorite.
Oh, I mean, I love another cantina movie I like a lot is Freaked. the Alex Winter
Okay.
one,
Yeah.
where it's all basically creatures, but it's a completely stupid comedy that just overdoes it way hard with creatures. And I know Alex Winter apparently has a new one on Shudder that's also very creature heavy, and it's just
That
kind of a
messed
thing
me
he
up. That
loves.
movie messed me up as a kid. It used to be
Sure.
on late at night all the time, and I remember tuning in and being like, "This is not for my eyes." But
Yeah.
I'm going to look at the person with the giant nose, and he's part of a twin with a person he hates, and it's crazy.
It's also the thing that I actually think Nightbreed unfortunately did not do enough of is slimy. the Nightbreed is too dry. They gotta
Right.
get some wet on them. But yeah, I do think that he cared a lot. It's obvious because that's this book, the Nightbreed Chronicles, which looks like you can get for about $40 used, is essentially like studio portraits of every single monster, basically.
Oh, cool.
Every single background player. It's what, if people would know it from anything, it's the cute studio portrait of Cronenberg and Clive Barker holding the little worms. That's from the Nightbreed Chronicles.
Okay, I would say to answer your question, my favorite monster from this is, I think that was the question, right?
No,
Sure.
but I mean, if you wanted to say that too, you can.
Well, my favorite monster is trying to figure out if the dude's head is a moon on purpose, or if that's just the way his head goes, or if he is a moon. But I do like the reveal that one weirdo has the like tentacles that come out from his gut.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a Beetlejuice action figure.
I feel like a lot of people are trying to give that performance, and that's the one guy who actually kind of does the performance of like a weirdo wisecracking perv.
Yeah.
Who's maybe in a relationship with that, like the devil guy.
Yeah.
Like, are they married?
Yeah.
He should be in that scene when Beetlejuice goes he gets to the couple
waiting room.
the afterlife.
Well, that's my answer.
Be
Actually,
there with this weird.
Oh yeah.
That was
I mean, all of Beetlejuice Afterlife is pretty good.
Yeah. The question, Jason, was, do you have a favorite Star Wars cantina moment where it's like showing a bunch of creatures? My answer was going to be the Beetlejuice waiting room. So now we got that out.
I think mine would also be Beetlejuice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two Beetlejuices and a freaked.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. I was just saying freaks would be cool, but it's probably also being like.
Yeah. I do like the Thunderdome Mad Max when he first gets to Junktown or whatever. That was pretty fun too. But as for a favorite monster, I don't know. It's hard for me. Like, the monsters are really cool in this, but it seems like, they showcase the coolest ones, and then like you start to see the other ones, and you're like, they probably didn't spend a lot of time.
His face is just on upside down. That's
These
not
guys
that
got a lot of these guys got weird eyes. Or like
top
for some
of his head
reason,
blue, bottom
they
white.
found a way to build the like, you got a tiny upper top and then your legs are real fat. There's like 3 or 4 of those guys.
I did like the one guy who's like, he's super tall and his bottom just gets really big, and he's kind of like walking out, and he just kind of like makes a noise at her as she walks by, like,
yeah,
I like that guy.
And the guy whose head is like in his belly. That's the guy on the cover of the book. But I think the problem is that they truly did go real hard on a couple creatures. So like, I'm a big like Shuna Sassy, the porcupine lady. Though you kind of wish she was in it more, but she's pretty awesome. And actually, you know what? Like, I think because they're not always supported by great performances, but I do think one of the great performances is the weird mom who like turns people into dust. She's like made of acid or something. Yeah, she's cool. She's the horny one.
Spiky.
Yeah.
I also like what's his name, like Peliquin,
sure.
Yeah, I think he's cool too. I like that he transforms and like when he goes.
See, I feel like I could have done without the transformation. I like him. Like, he's a very interesting character, and obviously, again, the unfortunate thing of like, man, Peliquin's really gonna pop off in the sequels. But I feel like the transformation, just because he's such a he's a horrible weird monster to begin with.
That's true. Yeah.
So he transforms into a bump head weird monster. The other problem I think is 2 shows, namely Star Trek The Next Generation and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where I feel like half of these things look like rejects from those shows, where it's just something's fucked up with your forehead, something's fucked up with your eyes, like just very little appliances. But I do know, for instance, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy that's the kind of the little freak with the dog, he said that he had he had almost no makeup, so everybody hated him because he could just roll in at like a normal hour and actually sleep. But he said that the punishment he got was he had to learn to do his own makeup, and he had to put nipples on, and they were just like, "We don't have time for you. You have to learn to put these on." And he's like, "Okay." And he said, "Yeah, like a lot of the people were doing their own makeup because it's just like they maxed out a makeup house hardcore because there's like 4 or 5 major makeups almost every single day."
I was watching a video today, and this guy was like, some familiar faces from Nightbreed that you might recognize, and then he names like Doug Bradley, and then shows Pinhead, and then the eyeball face guy, and then he shows that dude, and then he shows like
Chatterer, right? He's one of them.
No, he's like the big
Butterball,
with the goggles on. I'm like, they don't look the same at all.
There are a lot of Cenobites in this movie because you're like, who are these actors? And I mean, to go back to director talk, I guess another interesting thing I learned, which I didn't really know, was Clive Barker, before he was a writer, was like a theater director, and him and Doug Bradley had worked together a lot before that. And actually, a lot of Nightbreed, I think even beyond Hellraiser, is a bunch of this kind of fringe artistic theater troupe he had on screen, which is kind of cool. And so, like, because a lot of these actors are like, I've never heard of these people, but a lot of them are kind of interesting British theater people that he called up and was like, "Hey, I want you to be a weird little freak."
I assume Peliquin's in there somewhere because he definitely sounds like a British guy doing it.
Peliquin is, I think Peliquin was a pretty fancy. I'm trying to think. Peliquin and the guy who cuts his face off. That guy's like a Royal Shakespeare Company. You know,
he feels like it. He's
Stratford upon Avon, man. Yeah.
He's got a very particular delivery to most of his lines.
Yes, even though he's doing like, "Let's all ask to Lollapalooza."
How the hell are you?
Yeah. Like it should be David Johansen, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
He's with like most of his skin on his head just gone.
He's usually smoking a cigarette or chewing gum. You're like, these are the most American things I can think of over here.
Over here.
Yeah. I'm walking.
Do we want to move into the body of the episode? Is there anything else you want to add about Clive Barker, the man, the myth, the legend?
I mean, I do think that like coming out of this, I'm definitely left like, I don't know. I will say the cool thing is like, again, these behind the scenes stuff, everybody had a good time. All the actors talk about how like great he is preparing you with your character. So they all had like these deep kind of character connections. But I just don't know. I think he never really got there. Like, I do think a lot of these movies stick with you. And I'm even pretty defensive of Lord of Illusion, which I think is pretty cool. Other than maybe casting Scott Bakula. But I do think that none of them are like perfect. Like even my love of Hellraiser, that's a cheap looking movie that's got kind of a weird third act that is just like lucky to be as great as it is. And I do think that Nightbreed, like a lot of what we're complaining about with the makeup is like lighting and camera choices.
I think I agree, but also Hellraiser, it's wet cam, just like you asked for. It's so gooey.
True. Yeah.
So much goo.
Maybe they just ran out of goo.
Yeah, they spent their goo budget on the Hellraisers, and they're like, we got no more goo left.
Yeah, and I mean, also whenever you're talking about cheapness, I always think of there's a part in Hellraiser 2 where they're going into hell, and the set visibly goes like, because it's like it's like obviously a painted background, but you can get into it. Like I do think again, you're right. The world building, who cares? Like the fact that Midian looks like a weird painting / model kind of works and adds to the weirdness of this movie.
Yeah, that wide shot, the matte painting of the graveyard of Midian, especially later in the movie when it's like on fire, that effect was actually really well done. Like it looks really nice. It doesn't look too cheap. You can obviously see what's happening, but it doesn't, squint a little. It's an old video.
And it's also very hard to be like the other thing is, for any of how cheap this looks, I think it's probably him stretching the budget to the absolute max. Like it probably looks way better than that budget would allow for. Yeah,
the budget is like shockingly low as well.
Yes, yeah. I think by this point he was kind of doing a, give me X amount of money and let me do whatever I want.
Right.
Because I don't know.
I normally do that in this segment. Steve, do you have numbers? Do you have
11 million is how much it cost, and it made 16, so not a lot.
That's not a sequel, but that is we pulled off a robbery.
Yeah, and I do think like I'm pretty sure I've read also that he kind of left. He was not ever in like director's jail. He more moved on to do other stuff. I do know that a lot of his 90s was sucked up. He tried to develop, I think maybe Weave World for Disney. He tried to do because he has a lot of teen content that really hasn't been adapted. And I know that that took up like most of his 90s, and then I think, like you say, he made 2 video games, he made so many more books and stuff, and produced a lot of
it. I didn't really consider it until you just said that, but like even the Scarlet Gospel, like the final Hellraiser book that he made, does feel very like YA with a lot of R-rated content in it. Where just the writing style in general just kind of feels a little bit not amateur, but geared towards just some more simple stuff.
Like readable. I think Stephen King's the same, right? Like it's not trying to use $10 words. And I do know, I don't know if this is maybe for later in the episode, but there was a comics series that he really did seem to really oversee that was well hated, but it also did a crossover with Hellraiser in like 1991 called Jihad, which apparently sucks so hard, and it's like borderline indecipherable. But great, cool idea.
Track that down, comic book lover.
Yeah, I think that they're all bound somewhere, but you can find it on Amazon for like $1 because every review is like 1 star. What the hell is it?
I might have to find this.
I think that there are also a later good set of Nightbreed comics, so I don't know.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess we should move into the movie itself in the body of the episode.
The body of the episode.
I'd like to say that I know I said that my favorite monster in this movie was the Moonface Man, but blink and you'll miss it. I think that it should be noted that Corey Taylor from Slipknot was absolutely in the background of a lot of these shots.
I mean, Corey Taylor from Slipknot is the bad guy, isn't he?
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Cronenberg's character, Dr. Decker, that mask looks like a melding of all 3 of Corey Taylor's most famous masks. And I was spending the whole time going, did Slipknot get a lot of inspiration from this movie? Also, there's one scene where they do the cartoon thing where they go down from the ground level through the ground, and you see a mummy in a coffin, like cartoons do.
Well, it's just to let you know that it's a crypt. It's a mausoleum.
I thought that was a really funny touch.
Mummies.
The Simpsons has done that gag probably 1,000 times. Just for one that I was thinking of. Usually it's like dinosaur bones and then like in like a UFO, but like I was blown away by that. Also for the body of the episode, I've asked our favorite AI to just give us a sort of scene by scene summary. So instead of me reading out every single fact through the movie, I'm just going to kind of go act by act. And they're not really acts. They're more of just like chunks of the movie. The beginning of this movie is
the version I watched has 18 acts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the version you watched would have killed AI. Like AI would be done because it would be like does not compute. The human mind creates monsters.
I haven't fully read through this, and I'm wondering how this is going to stack up to all the different versions. But basically, the movie opens with a dream sequence. Boone dreams of monstrous creatures in a place called Midian. And then we see him in the doctor's office discussing his dreams with the therapist, Dr. Decker, who insists Boone is repressing violent tendencies. That's basically the opening of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, the version that I've watched, there's a sequence that I guess didn't have finalized audio. So it's basically the 2 characters talking to each other. Oh, yeah. At first, I was like, are they using telepathy? I thought they were like speaking to each other through their minds. But it's just the script is on screen and their lips are moving. Basically he's talking about how he has been visiting Midian. What is it called? Midian over and over.
It's from the Bible, Steve.
Oh, right. My favorite book.
Yeah.
And basically he's been having the same dream over and over for long periods of time, and then he gets a phone call from Dr. Philip K. Dick, and he basically he's calling him in for a checkup or whatever, his therapist, right? And we're then told that
a pretty sus checkup, it's worth saying.
Oh yeah, he's like sitting in the dark.
Hey, out of nowhere, I would like you to. I actually think also in the earlier cuts, it fully reveals there that he's the killer. Like I think you see him lift up
Up the
a
mask, or
mask.
something.
Because yeah, there was like I think both of the bits I watched, it didn't have his weird long talk of masks and like showing his mask collection.
Right. In this sequence, it's like he's sitting in the. It's also very sus. He's sitting in the dark on the phone
At
like,
night,
at nighttime,
seemingly.
the middle of the night. I need you to come in for a checkup tomorrow. And he goes in, and he's got a creepy office too for a therapist. It's not welcoming whatsoever. It's like a big giant open window with a stark background and gray walls and a weird geometric statue in the center of the room. But he reveals to him that a series of murders has occurred in the homes and to the people in the exact ways that Nightbreed himself has been describing in his hypnotherapy sessions, and he's got it all recorded, which is like, basically telegraphing to us immediately, like, oh, the doctor is just murdering people. It's like the least twisty twist you'll ever see.
Yeah, I mean, even the director's cut, I was shocked at how early that's revealed.
Yeah.
I definitely thought he was lurking around in a mask a bit longer, but...
Well, as far as I know, I think that it was never really supposed to be a big reveal either way. It wasn't supposed to be hidden from us, right? And
he seems pretty sinister from the
there's a lot of interesting, like, nobody really goes in depth into a lot of the studio fighting, but the fascinating thing seems to be that the studio was really jazzed on Cronenberg, and like a lot of the people complained that they just really wanted to be a slasher about him. So they reshot a bunch with him, and then really jazzed on, I got to look up the guy's name, the guy who cuts his skin off. They also shot a ton with him, including, based on all our cuts, he's dead. Based on the studio reshot that he's like, don't worry, I lived, brother. See you next adventure.
He winks, even though he's a severed head or whatever.
Yeah.
They can't kill me by decapitation.
So that's like fascinating because they like just brought that guy back. So it's like, it's an interesting studio fight where like actually the studio just like liked different stuff in the movie than I think the intention of the movie.
I had a weird thing where I didn't know that Boone becomes Cabal.
Oh.
And for some reason in my head, I was like, "Oh, the guy with the Cabal mobile later." That's what I called that car that they're driving around in.
Yeah, might as well.
I was like, that must be him because he seems like a fun part of this movie that he doesn't seem to have enough scenes. So
when he finally pulls that face off, you bastard.
But it makes so much sense that later in the movie, they're at Baphomet and he's like, "You're the chosen one, Neo." To Boone, and he's the Daywalker guy. Then I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. But for the longest time, I'm watching this thing going, yeah, this movie needs more of that character, I think, because he's kind of funny. He's like the taxi cab driver in the Escape movies, in the Escape from New York movie.
Yeah, you are the studio. And I mean, it's like the interesting thing, I put it in the chat, but like they're not wrong, because I do think that like the filmmaking in those Cronenberg killer scenes are amazing. And that look is amazing. And that guy, like, I know I kind of have the weird thing of like, what is your accent? But he does pop. Like, he works in a lot of ways. Because there's a lot of like real rough kind of 90s quips in this movie for some reason. And he takes on a brunt of those, but he pulls it off.
Speaking of the 90s, speaking of Midian, I want to mention that there was a professional wrestler named Midian who looked like this, okay? They repackaged him, speaking of studio interjection, and he became Naked Midian, and then he looked like this. So,
it looks like he has a fanny pack on covering his...
Well, you can't be fully nude on TV, obviously, so...
so he was naked, okay.
Yeah.
They
gave him a streaker gimmick, and he quit wrestling forever and became a chef.
So I thought you were going to be like, he became Cronenberg. Like, he should just have that mask. Like, wrestlers steal that mask.
Yeah, I
think it's niche enough. And I also think it seems like Nightbreed fans are just like, it's like being a Canadian watching a movie shot in Toronto, where you just be like, Nightbreed, yeah, hell yeah, brother. You're my favorite guy.
I was going to ask you about that, Cam, since this whole movie seems to take place in Edmonton and Calgary or in between. You're from
actually
Alberta.
North of is the weird part. It's kind of like northeastern Alberta is where Midian's supposed to be. But yeah, so it starts in Calgary. there's weird parts in Edmonton, which their version of is very much the side of a highway. So that's a little embarrassing, my hometown. But yeah, I've been obsessed with it forever, and I still don't get it. And I tried to look again to be like, because Cabal, the book, is set in Calgary. So I do know there's like a few statements where Clive Barker likes to write stuff in America because he likes to kind of be like divorced from the mythology of like where he's from because he's British. He also, yeah, he likes to kind of choose places that are out of the ordinary and unusual. And I've always taken it, there's a weird Rudyard Kipling quote because of the natural gas deposits in southern Alberta where he says that like they have hell for a basement. You might know for the horrible Nickelback song, also called Hell for a Basement. But yeah, I have no idea why it's set in Calgary, and I think it's baffling and interesting. And they did obviously shoot some stuff in Alberta. It's kind of the wrong part of Alberta because it should be pretty like prairies where Midian is.
I thought that
yeah.
Clive Barker was Canadian, even though I was like, he's British, right? And then I was like, what is happening in this movie?
And this movie is mostly shot in England at Pinewood, so it's also like that's partially why some of those sets look bizarre and every house looks British.
They do that weird wide shot of, I think it's Calgary with the tower. They have that smaller tower, which if you've been watching this show for a while, we talk about that tower because it's in Stay Tuned, weirdly, because they just shot a bunch in I think that movie was shot in Calgary, but they're like, it's fucking Chicago because you know what I mean. But I couldn't get through this movie every time they just dropped those names.
And like
really, it's off-putting.
Oh, and there's actually like it drives people kind of nuts because the directions to Midian are like 75% real places in Alberta directions, and then it throws out two cities, Dwyer and something else that don't exist. But there's like, I think that there's a Boing Boing post where a guy's like, well, okay, I believe I found the location of Midian in Alberta, and he's like, not as if, but he's like, this is where I think it would be set. Right. And it actually does seem like Clive Barker chose a place on a map that is like mostly, you know, reservations and kind of no roads and stuff, which is kind of a fun idea. But yeah, that like Peace River is real. He says like north of somewhere, east of Peace River, like all those places are real. So it's super bizarre and fascinating. And almost like you say the opposite, where it's like they are not hanging a lantern whatsoever on the fact that this is, but like it's just, you hear Calgary, you hear Edmonton, you're like, huh? That's
the weird part of
and even like the police they're kind of RCMP, kind of not.
But you can easily
hear some
like
accents, like people are kind of trying to do not an American accent, I would say. But
you could easily do the Midwest United States, but it's so much smaller and so much closer together that putting it in this area,
it's very possible he just wanted something different, right? Like
I think that might just be it, because there's never.
But I mean,
been,
geographically, like it's so wide open that you could hide a monster town.
For
in a graveyard out in the middle of nowhere in fucking rural Canada. A lot.
Maybe he just threw a dart at a map of North America and was like, "All right, this is where Midian goes."
And I mean, he was also like the other weird thing is, he like his career really blew up. So like maybe he was doing like Calgary's a big enough city to think he might have gone to some sort of Comic-Con or something and just been there and been, hey, this is pretty every town. But it's bizarre that it doesn't use like, she sings at a club. Why isn't it like a country club? Like it would be a country bar, and that's like not even offensive. That's just like if you were the most famous singer in Calgary, you'd be in 1980 whatever, definitely be a country bar
there.
But it's like a jazzy kind of jazz bar.
It's like just like an LA club kind of, which is like, all right. And all of it kind of works. Like the weird Art Deco kind of office Cronenberg has works, and and the, like I say, the cop that's like not quite RCMP but kind of is. It still works. It's just, and like unfortunately, like having a weird rural militia. We do have those too. Like we absolutely have the militia that's just waiting for like, wait, a town of monsters. Oh my god, we've been waiting forever.
Finally, I can use my shotgun.
Though I will say, I think he goes even harder than old Guillermo del Toro on like the monster is man. I do think that even if we found a city of real freaks who are like, please don't hurt me, we probably just wouldn't.
He's like, all right,
come in blasting.
We gotta shoot them first, ask questions later. They're freaks.
Oh, there's children. Better blast them first.
I was wondering about that scene in this opening, but we do get towards the end of the epilogue. That's what it says in the notes. I'm not going to. But
That's
when
not true.
when
It's a
Decker,
prologue, baby.
absolutely, that's what I meant to say. Prologue. But anyway, when Decker's going through the house in his Slipknot, I referred to him as Slipknot in my notes for the
sure.
rest of it. When he's killing that family, does that scene just go on and on and on of him skulking around the house,
No.
or is it just still pretty like?
It's contained. There's a little bit more of the beginning of the couple, the married couple, kind of like interacting flirtatiously. It's so jarring in the extended Ultimate Cabal cut. It's like this horrible VHS rip where it's like you're like, I thought it was a shot of a TV. I'm like, what is this home video? And then it like cuts to this is before I got far into it where I realized there's going to be a lot more of that. But it's just a little bit of extended flirtation between the husband and wife, which I don't think necessarily hurt the scene. I think it's just like didn't need to be in there, but it did give you an idea that it's a loving family,
Yeah, and this is to point out that Slipknot, which I think would be a great villain name.
I wrote him down as Henry Selick.
It's also it's also insane that like because I don't know any other movie we would get a lot more of what the serial killer is, the hunt for the serial killer, and whatever. But instead it's like you just have to take for granted they've been hunting the serial killer for a while and he's killed a lot of people and you don't see it. But it's like we never hear what that killer's name is. No. He doesn't have any name other than Dr. Decker because like we just see him in the freaky mask.
Which is like a good like villain killer name, but like they don't refer to the serial killer as his name because they don't know it's him.
But again, I think that's the unfortunate thing of like Decker. You kind of get the impression that Decker is going to be resurrected and be like an unkillable guy on the side of the other like anti-Baphomet guy.
Yeah, like
and it's like, oh man, in Nightbreed 2, Decker's really going to pop up. Yeah. Now Decker is the Nightbreed, anything can happen.
Yeah. Spoiler for the ending, I thought after he gets killed and falls into the chasm, he was going to rise as some sort of ultimate monster.
That would be great. Like a Koopa situation.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I thought it was going to be a thing where like his face becomes similar to the mask that he wears because it's so fucked up, right? Like it's just a representation of the monster inside him because he has a monster inside him, right? Like it is. He talks to the mask like it's another person. Yeah. I was wondering, like, all the characters have wild names, and his name is Philip K. Decker, which is clearly a reference to Philip K. Dick, the character Decker from Blade Runner. But I was wondering if the other characters are references to anything, because that's usually something that amateur filmmakers do to be like, it's the Savini house or whatever,
I do know a couple people hit on a few things, and Narcisse was something he's based on, because like the other thing that the one guy said is like Clive Barker is very funny because he'll give you the most detailed character stuff, but he's like it's stuff you can never look up. So he said like your guy is basically based on like these 8 movies. And he's like the only movie I could even find was Death in Venice. So he's like I just went all in on Death in Venice. Right. And then the other funny one was Doug Bradley's character is Dirk Lylesburg, and they ended up dubbing his voice. And he's like, he thinks because it's called Lylesburg, the voice was dubbed with a German accent. And he's like, I didn't play it with a German accent. And he's like, I think they only dubbed me because they like wouldn't pay to fly me out to ADR. Okay. But yeah, he's like, it's very funny that they chose to make this guy German. So whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and some people have these full names. They're like Shuna Sassy. I do know that like the part of the Nightbreed concept that kind of doesn't get across, but kind of it's a messy concept. But it's all kind of monsters from all folklore and mythology that have almost been stomped out. So I think some of them are meant to be representative of some folkloric creature. Because I think he's a bit of a Neil Gaiman guy, Clive Barker, who loves like all mythology and all whatever. I think was it Neil Gaiman? Some other author appears in the bar scene. They were saying in the documentary that if you look at the crowd dancing to her singing, I think it's Neil Gaiman, and she's like, "Yeah,
that's a hot subject right now."
I mean, send him to Midian where all can be forgiven. Am I right?
Well, it's interesting too because as the movie goes on, it's not like these people are inherently evil.
No,
it's actually kind of a holy land for an afterlife. It's like an explanation of an afterlife, and it's not even like if you do bad things you become a monster. You just like have like a monster in you, and it can be brought out if you're like
the
vampire rules.
forgiveness. Yeah, I mean that's there's a lot of the rules of the Nightbreed, but I also think this is again like trying to dig into like what Clive Barker was thinking. I think he wrote this after Weave World, maybe one of his like incredibly elaborately built worlds, and he's like, I specifically wanted to just be like like Cabal is just vibes. I don't want to over explain anything. I don't want to, and I do think that that's part of why people love this movie so much. But it is part of also like, yeah, what do you like? You do you have to kill like Palaquin is kind of like you can't be in here, man, because you haven't done anything bad yet.
Yeah, he's like that
but
first
then
spoil.
his bite kind of does it, and then when you add again the ending now where he has to bite his girl, like all it takes is a bite of a Nightbreed to become a Nightbreed. And you're like,
And then also like Boone has like a shady past too.
Yeah.
Like I killed people, man. I killed 15 people.
Yeah.
Well, he thinks he killed people, but it was the doctor that did it.
But it was the
Yes.
doctor.
Yeah, so it's like, did he kill people? I don't know. But there's also a weird implication that he was a Nightbreed before and got exiled.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the weird thing where he is kind of Nightbreed Moses.
Right.
You know, like he was always meant to come, where Palaquin's like, look at this mural. It was me. I didn't understand. I was a mural. And also, like, why are you mad then?
Yeah.
But then also the weird thing where, like, he is, I guess he's the, like, resurrection of Jesus, where he's, like, he's not the savior that they thought they would get, because he's the one that's like, tear down Midian. It's worthless. We need to fight.
Yeah, but I think it's revealed at the end by Baphomet that it is
and
actually,
Baphomet winks.
Yeah, wink. But it is like the
Yes,
prophecy
Baphomet
is that he would,
wanted it, but Baphomet just wouldn't tell the other people because he's an asshole, I guess.
he wanted Cabal to like rebuild Midian.
Yeah, though maybe does Baphomet not actually talk to anyone except Cabal? That might be possible too.
I think that they're all around, but I don't know if they can hear him.
They can hear, yeah. I think they're like, he talked to Baphomet.
Yeah, and only he. We were all there. We didn't hear anything.
Mm-hmm.
The first section of this movie, which we're still sort of in.
Yeah, sorry.
You know, no, it's fine. It's fine. I just want to cover it, like, because we touched on a little bit of this. There's the Laurie character. Boone and Laurie have a very good relationship, seemingly.
It's 100% just like their relationship's good. Do not question it.
Yeah, like, and later she's like, I don't even know if I knew you this whole time anyway. She is concerned about his mental state, but it's pretty much all good. We see a bit of the Decker manipulation with the weird pills. He's like, take these pills for your mental health. You'll be fine. He trips balls off of them.
Yeah, take this. What did they say? Like psychiatric grade hallucinogen.
Yeah. And then he wanders out into into traffic and somehow gets hit by a Mack truck, but doesn't get vaporized
because he's a Cabal.
Yeah, it is a very weird one too, where it's like, dude, just take your fucking shrooms and hang out at your girlfriend's show. Yeah, what are you doing? I do also think that like his whole setup is so like that. Would that have ever worked? Like Decker doesn't seem like he's going to be able to stop killing, so why do you have a patsy? And then also, I mean, I guess he's using him as like Midian bait, but I also do at least forgive that, like, I would see Laurie being like, wait, he didn't kill 15 families.
When?
Like,
we've been together
dating him for like a long time. He's not sneaking. And even that night, like, she's his alibi that night.
Yeah.
The night he kills people, they're in bed together. We see it.
I'm so naive that I'm watching this 2-hour cut of this movie expecting you guys to fill in pertinent information, but it sounds like the movie is the same movie, just with more people just walking around.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was gonna say the funniest part in the ultimate Cabot cut, the sex scene where they both leave their shirts on but take their underwear off, like pretty explicit. I will say that at least the bits I saw of the ultimate cut, a little more homoerotic. A lot more Craig Schaefer butt.
You see so much butt,
it's just a weird thing where it's like it is kind of explicit for two people to take off their underwear, and then straddle each other, but it's also funnily not that explicit because they both have shirts on.
Yeah. It's a no bottoms party.
They were truly, at least in the bit I saw, was not more explanation.
It was, there's like a sequence that I don't think is in the the director's cut, but it might be where he pours out all the letters and photographs and passport of himself and burns it all before he trips out on drugs. And I guess it's just supposed to be like him burning either his past or his present self, like burning his identity, but he's also already tripping out on goofballs or whatever the doctor gave him.
Yeah.
But while he's burning it, he has a vision of himself and her making love, where he's just like watching them make love to creepy, weird,
elaborate music. Danny Elfman music plays.
Yeah, I mean that's the other weird thing that does make this movie kind of slap is like constant Danny Elfman, and honestly, all the bits in the director's cut, and even the Ultimate was pretty good at just they're like, listen, if we got a rough piece, we're just gonna put some, booty shaking Elfman underneath.
I was saying to Steve that the score sounds like if Danny Elfman was like, so this is a year after Batman, but like a year before Beetlejuice, or is Beetlejuice before?
And probably no, Beetlejuice is before Batman, but this is probably done before Batman hits, if that makes sense.
But the score sounds like if you mix Batman and Beetlejuice together.
Yeah, I also find it interesting because like Elfman nowadays is very capable of a chill score, but this is kind of like the Beetlejuice Batman style, but chill. Like it's doing the but like pretty dramatic. Not not Tales from the Crypt, but close.
It's a lot of oboes and a lot of chanting and a lot of deep bass. But
another bad man, all these guys, everybody related to Nightbreed is being taken down.
Right, yeah. They are the Nightbreed. I mean, I guess people were hiring him for this at that point, right? They're like, oh, we want you to do
this is still pretty early, but it's like, good enough. And I would say, especially post the few Tim Burtons, is like, it's what you want.
Yeah. Give me what you did in the Army of Darkness, please.
I will say, speaking of Nightbreed,
that's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
Constantly,
the first time it is done is at 25 minutes and 15 seconds. Okay. But once you hear it that first time, they refer to the Nightbreed probably 5-7 more times.
The movie. Yeah, this is not one where they shy away from that.
No, it's like we watched Barbie a couple weeks ago, and I did a title drop.
Oh my god!
4 minutes into the show, and we were like, "Well, they say it. That's her name," and I was like, "That's kind of what the point I'm making." It's the name of the movie is kind of the conceit of the movie. So
I mean, you could probably get away without saying Nightbreed in this movie because it's just sort of a concept more than anything else, right? And also,
Eloquent in that background there look exactly like Ivan Ooze from
Rangers. That's true. Pelican is giving real Ivan Ooze. Somebody check if they just reused that mold for Ivan.
Yeah.
That sounds like something Haim Saban would get.
He just got all the old masks and was like, "Those are, you know what we're doing."
Yeah, number one Nightbreed fan. Hey, you know who the Power Rangers can fight? Every single guy from Nightbreed. Moonface.
We got a bunch of dusty Nightbreed masks over here.
I think there is a Moonface monster.
I'm sure there is.
There's got to be, I assume there was like a really like sort of interesting, creepy illustration of that guy before he was made into the weirdest mask ever.
It's true. I do. Actually, they showed the only illustration that was in the doc was of Shuna Sassy, and she's pretty close to what she is, except the face is like a little freakier. But you're like, oh yeah, he did it pretty good. But I'm curious because like Clive Barker is not 100% an artist, so it was kind of interesting to see his concept sketches. And I do wonder, what is a limitation, what isn't, because I think that's pretty. Actually, in the Hellraiser Jihad comic, they showed the new Cenobite they came up with, and he has an arrow sticking out of his head, and has a ponytail coming out of his forehead, and it was just like
their face is on upside down.
Wow, yeah, it was funny, but eventually he pisses off Pinhead because he's like, "You're a terrible Cenobite," and everyone's like, "Yay!" Anyway, it was a very funny review. I really appreciated roasting that shitty Cenobite.
Are the night? Is this like a prequel story for the Cenobites?
So apparently in these comics, so like you do forget that the Cenobites worship another biblical god, Leviathan. So essentially, it's like Baphomet versus Leviathan, and these are the followers. And I can't remember why, but Pinhead is disgusted by the Nightbreed because of their chaotic nature or something. So he's like, I must exterminate Nightbreed. But yeah, it's like they are both the followers of a god that God did away with in the Bible.
Well, that's funny because I always bring up Final Fantasy. That's like a stupid thing that I do on this show.
Sure, and I mean, Final Fantasy has all those guys.
Well, Leviathan is a summon, and Baphomet is mentioned in lots of biblical references. But this Midian feels like in Final Fantasy VI, there's this place called Land of the Espers, and these Espers are basically like kind of god people. Like they're just these like monsters that sort of get invaded by the like Hitler of that universe, and he starts stealing them to use them as magic. And I almost thought that's where this movie was going a little bit, because it's like once they infiltrate this world, it's like when the humans siege this literal world, if they take one of these monsters and crush it into a diamond, which is what the Espers are in Final Fantasy VI, could you use them as magic? And I'm sitting there going like, this is literally the land of the Espers. And I saw so many parallels that like, is this like a common theme in the Bible? I've never really read the Bible, but is there this like land
yeah, I mean, I think I was hearing that Midian in the Bible is kind of a place between life and death, and it's like a city that's destroyed. Oh, there we go. Real Feels podcast has me on the terrible sounding Nightbreed comics. But I don't remember. I did look it up a bit, but yeah, it's a city that's destroyed in the Bible, I believe. But yeah, it is, and it does seem like, I mean, again, to go back to director stuff, I kind of feel like this is trying to do stuff that Guillermo del Toro would like more successfully do later. And like what you're saying actually is like what feels maybe a little missing from this narrative, because this one is just that humans want to destroy the Nightbreed. What feels like is missing is humans want to exploit the Nightbreed.
Yeah,
which see slightly in the sexual stuff, but otherwise they just want to shoot them.
Like if you could pull somebody from this world, would that introduce real magic to the real world? Cabal is like very Neo, very very like the chosen one feeling.
Yeah, the old hero's journey.
Exactly.
No, he's like drawn via dreams, and so I don't know. It's a little outside of it.
But that there's a lot.
I think that's another reason why this movie is so compelling. Like, when I first saw it, I was very much into the monster idea of it, where I'm like, oh, cool, I like all of the monster makeup here. But the more you get into it, the more that hero's journey stuff makes it more intriguing. But like you were saying earlier, Cam, where all of these characters are cool enough that they could have their own side stories. There's dangling threads everywhere. And even the end of the movie where we want Cronenberg to be Cronenberged and come out of the ground as a Cronenberg monster. I can understand
out of his own chest somehow.
Yeah, I can understand the love that exists for it, even though it's not particularly a great movie. It's just still so.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that is the strength that Clive Barker had as a filmmaker, and like you said before, world building. It's always been his thing, and it's just. And it's tough to know, like, if the monsters looked a bit cooler, that's actually not the problem. Because it's just like, it's more that these plots are all kind of touched on and dropped. And
I think that they didn't spend enough time explaining the Berserkers, because the Berserkers fascinated me so much.
Let me tell you,
they're uncontrollable.
It was a bit I liked hearing about the bad. So the comics were weird, I guess, because they claim to have been conceptualized, but everyone kind of disputes that the 90s. So these comics came out at pretty much the same time. Everyone disputes that it's like different artists every time and different writers quite often. So they kind of just felt all over the place. But the one that sounds very interesting is about like the creation of the Berserkers, and that they were they were essentially like a weird thing where during World War I, briefly the Nightbreed teamed up with the Kaiser and is like,
Oh.
we'll help you. But they created these berserkers and kind of regretted it and is like, oh, this is what happens when we work with humans. And like, this is why we have to kind of be totally away. Because like our powers combined with humans is too fucked up. And I think that they like sacrifice Nightbreed to create the berserkers. So it's like that comic sounds cool. I do want to read that.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
I
that
will
sounds
buy this bad collection to read that one comic, even if the art looks like. But yeah, but some of the art looks like behind me is actually comic art, which is like there's like a weird monster that is like, I'm so old, I have no more teeth, but he just fills his mouth with knives and scissors and stuff.
Scissors and a
That's-
razor blade.
I didn't
That's
realize
awesome.
that. Yeah, I
That's-
didn't realize
yeah.
that was a mouth until I thought it was
it's like
someone's back.
I think it's like the final frame. He's like, lucky I got my dentures. And you're like, yeah.
Big
I think it's
smile
the
for camera.
same weird comic group that did. I think Jason, you've talked to me about this. Those weird kind of adult Ghostbusters comics from the late '80s and early '90s. I think it's that same sort of failed.
But yeah, well, there was also me and Steve have talked about how there's all these weird. There's that comic book company that made that Ash versus.
Oh yeah, that's Boom maybe.
Yeah,
I have
you
it actually right
showed it to me, and then I went and looked at their catalog, and it has all these like IPs. They got the rights for all these crazy IPs, and it has like Ash versus Predator, it's like some shit like that. And what you're describing, where they go back and meet the Kaiser, and they're in the Civil War and all that, like that sounds like Nightbreed sounds like a whole long line of comics in this.
It's
Done
Dynamite Entertainment.
Dynamite
Okay.
Entertainment, yeah. Oh
So
yeah,
this-
Freddy
this
versus
was-
Jason versus Ash.
I think Epic Comics is the one that did Nightbreed, but they did a lot of those '80s Alien comics, and
Yeah.
I do seem to remember that people actually did enjoy the Hellraiser comics of that era.
I did, yeah. I mean,
Because you can
I
actually
love
do the
comics,
thing
but-
that they're talking about in Hellraiser in a comic book, not in a movie.
it's true.
Yeah, I guess.
There's a lot-
Oh, I
there's a
don't
lot more-
know. Then you got
there's
to
a
go
lot
to
more-
the talk to the guy, and he takes you in the bank and
There's,
like,
there's
comics
also a
with
lot more like
an X.
creative
I don't know.
creative leeway where you can just sort of like, I'm gonna take these two characters and mash them together and see if anyone gives a shit when I try and bump them.
Yeah, and I mean, what does again sound compelling sometimes of these comics is like following an individual Nightbreed member
Yeah.
in another city or something, and
Which
just
is
being
why
like,
I think a little bit why it would work as a series, right? You could.
oh yeah.
you
Well,
could
I mean, to go back to maybe the larger thing of just the plot
Mhm.
and like where we were in the plot, I think they just don't like as much as this movie is too long. It also like doesn't spend enough time on anything.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was
Where,
going to
like-
mention the scene where we meet Sissis for the first time. That could have been 25 minutes of expository information, getting to know the character before he cuts his face off. But it's like even the Ultimate Edition, there's only about 45 seconds in the middle there where we get a little bit more.
Yeah, and isn't
before it
that
cuts.
like you could have a whole episode where this guy's locked in a hospital room where
Yeah.
he thought he was going to die and he didn't, and beside him is this crazy guy, and he's the only person who's ever mentioned the place this guy
that he
dreams
about.
of
Yeah,
that drives him nuts. But this guy seems extra nuts, and you're like, well, do I trust
the crazy guy.
the
Yeah.
super crazy guy, or do I trust my doctor who seemingly set me up? That could be a whole TV episode. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. But I also just think like Jason, the cut you and I watched, the director's one, like before it's even 1 hour in, we are fully mask off revealed
Yeah.
that Cronenberg's the bad guy.
Yes.
Lori is already deeply in Midian, and they're like, okay, like it's not about the girl finding Midian, like she's in it. And
I've
then
talked
it's just
about this
like, ugh.
before. I have this thing with movies where the first like 15 minutes of any movie I watch for the first time, I'm not gonna remember it because it's just sort of throwing all this new information. And the second time I watch it, I'll hone in. In that first 20 minutes, we get like we're introduced to Boone, we're introduced to Decker, we're introduced to their relationship, we're introduced to Midian, we're introduced to a monster, we're introduced to the drugs, we're introduced to Lori, we're introduced to Lori's fucking nightclub shit, and then we're introduced to him getting hit by a bus.
Yeah.
And then like 10 minutes
And
after
then he's
that,
introduced to a bust.
yeah, and then 10 minutes after that, he's dead. I'll just talk about the second like segment of the movie.
Oh yeah, the second segment is maybe the weakest in this regard of like, does any of this need to happen?
Boone finds Midian. It's a cemetery. He encounters the mysterious residents. He meets Peloquin.
Boone drives for like 20 hours straight. That is, driving from Calgary to 4 hours north of Edmonton. They're close, but they're not that close.
We get that reveal that Decker's the serial killer. He then manipulates the police into, them believing Boone is the killer just because he's like mysteriously on the run from, and then Boone gets killed by the police and Decker, and he, that has all happened in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
All that laundry list of things, which that's like a movie.
Oh, absolutely. And I do think like one of the great weaknesses, and I don't think it's even explained yet at this point, is Decker's motivation. Is just like, I hate
it's never
things
really
that breed. He hates humans that breed, and Nightbreed is if the Nightbreed was constantly fucking
they're breeding,
having babies, I'd get it. And there are a lot of children.
There's a few children.
But I don't know. It's terrible. And it's not explained, I think, until way later when like Decker's mask off to Lori, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's so weird. And so I think that's the weird thing is like what we're used to in a traditional 3X structure. And I will say that this structure issue exists even in the tightest theatrical cut. This is not a extension issue.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's my nativity and whatever. And also like I'm sitting there going like, they're explaining so many things to me in such a short period of time for how basic the story really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really simple story about a guy who is, the chosen one for this group of like mythical beings.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a guy who hates the mythical beings. It's really hero, villain, magical land, magic. It really feels like a lot like an old 80s fantasy film, like a Crow or like a Labyrinth. But then for some reason, they're just throwing new ideas. That one character comes and goes so fast that the woman that Lori meets on the road.
Oh yeah, who is great. And then she gets killed like immediately. Yeah,
but she comes and goes so fast that when they introduce that next girl who just works at like she's like eating the fucking croissant
and
off
you're
the
like,
floor. I'm like, no, they look the same. And I was like, I know I just saw her get fucking.
I love that scene, but that scene also makes no damn sense.
And he also puts down the previous woman's head on the fucking table, right?
I think it's the guy. So I think what he does is prop up a man's body, chop his head off, put his head, because she's like, oh, Jim. And then when he gets up, it's his head. But the thing is, Cronenberg's behind her. So I also think we just don't see that his headless body is also like leaning on the table. But yeah, again, this is just stuff that is, and it's very interesting because it's not like, it's tough to say like what to cut. And it's tough to say, like, you could not, like when we're saying, oh, the scope is too large too. Yeah, you couldn't cram this into one movie because, like,
do you guys ever ask yourself, like, what is horror? I find myself asking that question to myself very frequently.
I do also think that is actually like part of this Barker studio fight. This is like dark fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. And I've learned over the years, especially doing this show, that horror movies aren't necessarily scary, and usually they're not scary. There's just like tropes, and you fit a bunch of those tropes together, and then it becomes a horror. But then, like you literally just said, this, I don't think this really is a horror movie. I think it is a dark fantasy because it very much leans on fantasy tropes more than it does horror. But then it's still in that era of practical effects. Yeah. And all the practical effects look so fucking hyper realistic that like all of the horror elements of this movie are really great.
And there's too many bits that are like too fucked up. Like, and again, truly the bit where he's killing the family is brutal, and it ends
that's
with him
horror to me.
slowly approaching a child and a tear running down the child's face because he knows he's going to die.
Yeah.
Like that's wild and hyper R-rated. But yeah, then the rest of it, you're like, oh, and then yeah, the behemoths are like an interesting story, but they're kind of putties by the end of it.
They are kind of putties. You
They're
can
like-
subtract a couple of things from this movie, and it'll be a fun PG-13 dark fantasy.
Absolutely. And actually, I was going to say that the guy with his face cut off reminds me a lot of Little Monsters.
Exactly. The blue guy from Little
alternate, the face.
Yeah.
That, which is terrifying. And again, that's like screwed up the other way, where it's like, oops, we accidentally had one R-rated scene in the middle of a PG film. And yeah, no, it's very fascinating. But it is like, I do think, maybe I'm repeating myself, but I think watching these cuts made me be like, it kind of sucks to just realize that they maybe never shot anything that would fully make sense.
Yeah, and there wasn't a full vision to turn a book into a movie.
And it's just like, maybe, you know, this movie really is what it is, and I do think that there's a lot of appeal to it. But it's just too bad that, like, as a kid, you're like, something's wrong, I can imagine. And these movies exist. Like, I mean, I always think of Possession, the Zhilovsky movie, like the cut that was presented to the American public. Like, you can't even find, it's kind of the same, where that now has become legendary because they're just like adding voiceover, being like, hello, this is Satan, this is a movie about a monster. and now it's like a respected art film, and it's like, oh my god. But there's not really that here. It's just like, one kind of mess or another kind of mess.
Feels very good. It feels very like Ninja Turtles too. But you just take all the colors and have some blood, and you got a lot of different weird monsters from a Saturday morning cartoon. Like, I'm watching this thing going, I didn't look this up. I forgot to look it up.
Oh, sure.
But are there action figures for this movie?
Oh, I'm sure there are somewhere, right? If
this
not,
is and I don't mean like, you know, McFarlane toys made.
Oh, I was going to say, somebody get Todd McFarlane on the board. Yeah. No, not of the time, I don't think.
That's, but I want to push on the legs of the guy with the cool, like, ghosty face when his little tentacles come out of his gut, like, from pushing on his legs. That's what that reminded me of. There's an action figure from Beetlejuice of Obnoxious, which is that character that is like the friend of Catherine O'Hara, you know, and he's like, sure. And you take off his take off his little head and he's got a scared face underneath. It's very Ghostbusters adjacent as well. And a lot of these monsters reminded me of like that. Like, you push the legs up on the spiky woman, and her spikes come out, you know, like Pelican, same feature. We had just, you know, cost cutting measures.
I will say there's a really banging NECA that does the really fancy figures lately.
Okay.
Has a very good Decker figure. Cool. So if you love the Decker design, it looks real nice.
Oh yeah,
NECA famously has
I guess this image that I have behind me is like the box art for the toy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
NECA is famous for its like hyper realistic looking, like Batman and Joker from the Dark Knight.
And I mean, obviously, you guys know the NECA site just like broke the internet because they released Murder, She Wrote, and it was their fastest selling toy of all time. Angela Lansbury. I know, but I love it. I'm like, that's actually a great idea. Like, do Magnum PI, and you will also.
I'll buy that.
There's a specific type of person that would never buy an action figure who would buy an Angela Lansbury.
Absolutely. That's also like playing into the gay man. And I do. You're right.
I assume he comes with a typewriter.
I don't even remember. It looks good though. It was fun because it was like, it wasn't purely hyper realistic. There was a bit of a cartoon touch.
Right. That's cool. I still think that he looks more like a Selleck character than he does a Slipknot character.
I mean, I see it. I love the fact that the mouth is so weird. Like, the zip is not on the front.
It almost looks like everything is being pulled to one side, which is a really cool. It does sort of look like a Tim Burton.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, obviously it's like a sculpted, not a bag.
That's where I was thinking of the Slipknot masks, because they're all very hyper stylized and look like different weird things. That's man, there's like so many good things in this film, but then so many weird
Yeah.
things. And the fact that I'm gonna say this more times, so put a counter on the screen, but like the fact that the 3.5 hour cut doesn't add more context, just adds
It
more
adds
people.
a bit of context. You didn't watch it. It does. I'm not saying
Okay.
it doesn't. I'm just saying
I'm
that-
fascinated to know in my life before I die, Jason. Let me know if you ever watched the 3-hour cut, because I think it'll tickle in your mind like it did me.
There are moments that are added that add a little bit of depth to the characters that is lacking in the director's cut. There's a moment in the office at the very beginning where he has a breakdown to the doctor, and the doctor is very compassionate and loving almost to him in a way that a father would to a son if someone was breaking down, that doesn't exist in the other cut, that adds a little bit of context to both characters and the trust that they have for one another that seemingly doesn't exist otherwise outside of that.
Yeah, we get the weird, there's so little context for his mental illness before
at all.
The doctor treated him for, and even the amount he told him about Midian and how much he knew about Midian, because like obviously he knew enough to be like, and there's monsters and they're breeding, and that really stuck
at
in
night.
Cronenberg's mind.
Night breeding, they might say.
Okay, breeding. Like I've killed all the people in Calgary. I guess I gotta.
Gotta move on to the underworld.
Yeah, like again,
in 10 months.
You can make a whole movie to me about a serial killer who gets so bored of serial killing people that he's like, wait a minute, there's monsters.
That's
hello.
Dexter, I guess. Yeah, but a murderer.
But Dexter doesn't kill vampires. This is what I mean. Like he's like, I'm tired of killing people. It's so easy. I need to find something sicker.
There's also a little bit more context in the scene between Sissus and Cabal in the hospital before he cuts his face off. You really get the idea in this clipped footage. It's also one of the nice things about the extended edition is it's very obvious when it's happening, because the audio, all of a sudden you can hear the ambient sound of the room like so horribly, and like the quality goes down a little bit. So you're like, oh, they added this. But there's an extended sequence of him getting down on his knees and essentially like praying to Nightbreed, just being like, oh, you're the chosen one. You're gonna lead me to Midian, and you almost feel him as a god before he's even reached there as like the Messiah. He's recognized as the Messiah beforehand, and it gives a little bit more context to Sissus as well in what he was before he reaches his monster potential. I guess he is probably the least logical in terms of like, you find out he was a monster.
I also do feel like that's a fascinating one where I'm like, some of this is maybe the reshoot, some of it isn't. And also it's hard to tell how much Clive Barker was in or not in on the reshoots.
Right.
Because that's like, the fact that he is like, they won't take me, like it'd be interesting if he's the guy who's never sure. But then by the time Laurie's coming, he's like, listen, it's old hat. I know all these guys.
I know everything now.
Yeah, follow me around. It's no problem.
It's kind of,
and he's like cracking jokes about like, I love a sailor, that stuff. And which I love.
Moonhead, me and Moonhead go way.
Well, he just said the guy, one guy, nice tattoos. I love a sailor. I like that bit, but it's that you're right. That part just doesn't. It's like two different movies.
Yeah, you want the context, but at the same time, at a 3.5 hour long version, if they were to add that context in, it's like, okay, well, fuck, we don't have time for it. And he's not even a main character and doesn't really become one. He's literally Sissus the chauffeur after a while.
He's like the comic relief character in a movie that's not a comedy at all.
But I mean, his bits are good. Like the tattoo bit is good. I like the
tattoos
visual, the visual comedy.
He does seem to be not affected by light. So he gets to do a little more, which again, some of them like explode in the light.
Yeah, they play fast
with
that Daywalker stuff.
Being a little freak in the light. Some of them,
someone turns into a giant chihuahua when you go in the light.
I will say the most fascinating part of that documentary, and you're like, yeah, no, actually, I believe you, lady. She's kind of going into actor talk, the main actress. But she's like, my job now is like working heavily with animals and like caring for animals. And that whole part where she saves the weird little freak animal and it turns into a little girl was cut in theatrical So like she's like, I hadn't seen that in 20 years, and yet I've spent 15 years of my life like obsessed with animals and rescuing animals. And she's like
that was the moment.
well, she's like, that seeing that moment literally like drove me insane, because I was like, my first animal rescue was me acting through this weird thing of being like, do you need water? Do you need whatever? And she's like, yeah, maybe I did realize that I wanted to be an animal rescue person with this friggin', because she's like, it was very hard. Obviously, you're carrying a weird animatronic puppet. Yeah. And you're just trying to ignore the sound of servo motors and 100 guys beside you, like drinking their tea and being like,
they take the
one teardrop. Yeah,
they take the Chihuahua one and give you the half Chihuahua, half human, and they give you the real human with prosthetics on. And
she's both like, I was both amazed that I was able to keep that performance, remembering how stupid it was, and then also being like, yeah, no, unfortunately, this broke my mind for the rest of my life, and now all I do is rescue dogs.
It is odd that that's not in the theatrical, because I think for me that's probably one of the most
makes the most sense. Moments. Oh yeah. And that mother-daughter is great throughout, and it makes Laurie, you get like both why they would respect her, because that mom keeps coming up in the director's cut and helping her. And then also, like, that a person, I mean, that's the other problem, where it's just like that 99% of humanity, except for Laurie and the black cop, are like, let's blow these fuckers apart. Oh, and I guess the priest, but everybody else.
The priest is in it for different reasons. He wants to be a Nightbreed, and he becomes one.
Yeah, I mean, the priest has lost his mind. Jason, do you want to take us to like Act 9?
I was working on this that whole time.
Giant Chihuahua, look at that thing.
Yeah, but it is good, and it is wet. I take it all back. There was a wet puppet,
and that's a situation where a little kid goes into the sun and becomes that thing, and then as soon as she's out of the sun, she's good.
The mom too is like, she likes to play in the sun. She likes to play in the sun, even though she shrivels up into a weird little freak.
She loves it. I told her not to go out there.
Yeah.
When he's wandering through Midian, I know I'm going backwards a little bit here.
No. I mean, are you? I don't even know.
We're kind of jumping a little bit all over.
Yeah.
But he gets sprayed by like a flower in the version that I watched, and I cannot remember if that happened in the other versions.
No, I don't remember that.
I don't think
it's like
so.
He falls asleep in the graveyard, which is kind of weird, I guess. And
the first time or the second time?
Before he gets shot. This is like he's wandering around.
It's the director's cut is very just Moonface and Peliquin being like, "Oh, he's here," and there's a couple people down underground. Being like,
shots of people.
Let him in. It's fine. He is the chosen one.
Yeah.
And the extended version, Peliquin's like, "Nah, fuck this guy.
He's meat. I'm gonna eat him." Or I'm just gonna take one bite. That's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
But in the extended version, he's walking around for a good 15 minutes in the daytime. And the sun is getting low, and
you are not selling this version to Jason.
A flower like in Hook, when the flower sneezes on on Robin Williams, it's like one of those, except he gets covered in dust. And I guess it's implied that makes him fall asleep, and then he falls
that makes
asleep.
Sense.
And then those guys find him sleeping, and Peliquin is like, I want to eat him, he's meat. And the other guy's like, we can't hurt normals. If we hurt him, we'll get exiled, and it's against
I will
the law.
say another, God, I hate that I'm bringing up these comics that I decided not to read because every review is bad. But again, one of the comics seemed to delineate something where it was like part of why the Nightbreed removes themselves from humanity is they find this, they essentially are like drawn to the meat, and to be a part of society is very hard for them to control their urges to like consume people. So it's also like they're good because these Nightbreed are good because they've chosen to remove themselves from society, but there are Nightbreed who are still in cities just consuming people and stuff.
I think you've provided like more context from those comic books then.
Yeah, exactly. There is good stuff in them. And like, again, I do think that this is where Clive Barker could tell you, George Lucas style, like, this is the Wills are microscopic people who live inside Jedi's blood. Like, I think Clive Barker probably did have some roadmap, not a ton. I don't think, because he hasn't been banging out more Nightbreed stuff. But I do think he had some ideas of like what he wanted of this society and what he thought of like, where would obviously there's like a Moses thing too, because it's like, you know, Jews wandering in the desert and he goes off on his own and they're like, hopefully we'll see you again, Gabal. And,
well, if you watch through all the Hellraisers, which one of those is a backdoor sequel to Nightbreed? Right?
I
There's
mean,
like 7 of them. Or
yeah,
9
probably
of them,
the one where Henry Cavill's playing a VR game.
Just to move the plot forward, we've talked about this already a little bit, but basically Boone gets resurrected with the magic of Midian. Laurie's looking for him.
I don't know if that's true. I think he already had the Nightbreed in him. I think the bite just woke him up a little.
Just woke it up.
Yeah,
but it also
no,
seems
he
like
does
his
at least
vampire
die
role-
because he seems to have had a pulse before and then confirmed is a dead body the rest of the movie.
The rest of the movie is a corpse. Yeah.
And then Decker is trying to pursue Laurie during this segment as well. And that's the scene we already talked about with, you know, she's on a road.
Yeah.
It turns into a road trip movie for a little while.
She road trips. She borderline leses out with the hottest slut at the bar. Like, why does that? Again, what is up, 80s? Fuck that, Laurie. You and that woman fuck. You got great chemistry. And she's like, I'm gonna stay here. It's like, lady, you could fuck Laurie
Also,
right now.
you know,
Laurie is asking for it.
Could have been a full episode as well, like of his mini series of just like the two of them having an extended journey together and learning about each other a little bit more. I would have liked to have seen more of that.
4 minutes on each
for sure.
of that.
You know
story?
what?
Yeah.
I remembered, which I sadly think, God damn it, is from the comics, that Peliquin's kind of horny and does have sex with like human women. Okay. And I thought, because I was like, oh yeah, this is like a funny thing, right? Where she, like her and Peregrine kind of have a thing, but then she just immediately gets fucks Cronenberg and then Cronenberg knifes her to death.
Yeah.
Kind of oh, what's good for the goose is not for the gander, huh? It sounds like you're a bit of a breeder yourself, Dr. Decker.
A night breeder.
Yeah, he wasn't breeding during the day.
just nighttime.
He's hanging out at some sleazy roadhouse waiting for Cabal to be resurrected.
The weird like rules.
Goes out of the bathroom and he like zips up his mouth.
It would be funny. You don't see him when she's like, "Oh, what a classy man," but he's like in the whole outfit.
Yeah.
It's also worth saying I love his weird extra long knives.
When they cut over to the person sitting, they just show like a redneck. Also, like
but then she recognizes it, right? Like it's implying that she slept with.
Yeah. There's also like the weird rules of the actual graveyard that are like, can these monsters leave the graveyard? Because when the cops roll up,
oh yeah,
they're like the naturals are coming.
I don't think it's like a magical rule so much as it is just a rule that they have within their society. Like we don't leave.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's so you're right, because that is kind of what they debate. But then there's also like again, they're seeding enough good stuff where like that the weird man at the like roadside gas station or whatever, he knows the Nightbreed, and he's like, well, I knew they'd probably come for them eventually. And you're like, I want to know the relationship between weird gas station man and Peliquin, where he's like, give me some smokes.
Peliquin loves cigarette. He is smoking.
I'm drunk. I need some, a pep and jed, buddy.
I feel like it might have also had some thinly veiled racial undertone politics.
Oh, for sure. No, it's
not thinly veiled. Yeah, it's
right they definitely are like,
Decker walks up to Boone. He's like, he's got a gun, and they fucking just unload into him. Like,
well, like later in the movie, there's a line where the sheriff of the town or whatever is saying like, we're killing them because they're different. What else reason do we need? And he's saying this to, I'm going to call him Captain Panaka because I can't remember anything else that he's ever been in. He looks at him like, what the fuck? Like the look of a man who's like, I am different than you.
And I do think in 1989 to have your FBI agent be a black man is like a pointed statement, not especially like when you're shooting in England and stuff. Like that is a choice. And I think he is saying it. And then I do think that again, like most Guillermo del Toro things, the Nightbreed stand in for everybody, and they are pretty gay and they are pretty whatever else.
It's basically they stand in for all othered, basically.
And all people who have like found a community that is then put upon. And I think also just this idea of like, is it better to hide your community away, or is it better to like show yourself and fight? Which again, it doesn't quite do. That would be Nightbreed 2,
Yeah.
Well, also,
is it better to
know, but like Clive Barker is a gay. Like,
No, I did
Yeah,
know that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah,
So
I did
the
know
one-
that. You can also tell by the image on IMDb.
Yeah.
It's just him with like.
Is he
his
smoking
nipples pierced and,
cigars?
like, a bunch of
This
chains.
thing
He's
used
got
to
like a
be-
little vest.
It's just him making out.
But
with
he
John.
was all, I will say he was very much the kind of like Rob Halford gay guy where people would just be like, ooh, that's a weird guy.
Hyper
Yeah.
masculine.
And
Wow, look at all
I
that
do
leather.
also think, as much as I
My
wish
man.
I wish Clive Barker had great health and could produce a million more things. I do also remember that he was really good friends with Bill Maher and was always on that show. And I'm like, I do think we've saved ourselves
Real time.
from some perhaps spicy opinions from Mr.
Mhm.
Barker,
Mr. Barker, yeah.
thanks to him hiding in a castle. And
Well, we all know that Bill Maher
know.
definitely boned
yeah. Oh, yeah.
for sure, right?
I mean, I don't know though. I think a little D might cure Bill Maher's
That's
brain
true, yeah.
worms, you know?
He just
Yeah, I think Bill Maher's fucking fell off for the last 25 years. He used to be hyper left, and now he's like weirdly right, even though he still has like a left wing view. Anyway,
he just hates people who are under the age of 40. I think it's like
yeah, I think that's gonna happen to all of us. Realistically, I think it's better I think it's better to bang before Baphomet at the feet of Baphomet than it is to just bang out in the fields, though. You know.
I prefer to bang in front of the Leviathan.
Yeah.
My skin is all being ripped off and put onto a pillar. Of
I mean, the Leviathan, to its credit, is a cool floating like
crystal
that has those chains.
That's true. The chains are part of Baphomet.
Though it does fuck up that doctor. It doesn't. That guy thinks Leviathan's gonna love him, and it does not. Whereas Cabal is kind of worried about Baphomet, and he's like, "You're cool."
Yeah, I think Baphomet is
Disney-
probably a better god. I think Leviathan is like an unemotional, logical creation or whatever.
Again, dangling thread I do like is I do think that the actor that plays the priest is super interesting,
Mhm.
and I do like that it's like, listen, Baphomet blesses Cabal, and he becomes this guy, and Baphomet's blood gets on the other guy, and he becomes apparently Satan. And then it's like, I do like that it's like, which guy is right? I don't really know, because they both seem blessed in a way by Baphomet.
I think Disney needs to buy the rights to this whole both the Hellraiser universe and the Nightbreed
I will
universe
say, if it was
make
with
an
Fox,
MCU.
it was a Fox movie, so Disney may own the rights to Nightbreed.
That's actually, that's a good point.
Yeah, and Disney was, whatever he was developing all through the 90s after Nightbreed was Disney related.
Yeah. Another like strange thing about this movie is like not even halfway, like past halfway, we're then introduced to a whole new slew of characters that like have been absent or just not even needed up until this point. They're like, well, now we're introducing a whole new jail cell situation with a sheriff and a bunch of deputies and a crazy priest who's been locked up.
Yeah, and also the priest, I tried to look really deep. In my mind, and Steve, you're more a comics guy, though I don't know, Jason. He looks like the human version of the Preacher comic. And I'm like, did they just draw this friggin' guy?
Maybe,
like, he just
Preacher is
like
80s,
Preacher
right?
in the, Oh, maybe it predates it. Maybe you're right.
It's possible they.
Oh, you were saying the other way around, possibly.
Like it was him, like let's just.
Oh, in '95, like he's just like, hey, I like this niche dumb movie, and the guy that played the priest, let me just basically draw him. And
I mean, that not
threw me off. And I was kind of like,
for,
is that a thing? And is that a thing where Clive Barker would be like, is it a handshake deal that this is the same priest? Or no, it's not. I didn't find anything, and I don't know.
Sometimes you just, as an illustrator, you find something visually that you find intriguing, and you just kind of steal it and don't tell anyone.
Oh yeah, why not? I will say, Jason, too, that is a sequence that, like, and I'm not the pickiest man on earth when it comes to filmmaking, but I went back 2 or 3 times to the scene where Cabal / whatever the hell his name is before is being beaten by the cops.
Aaron Boone.
Aaron Boone. There you go. Boone / Cabal. And the priest is what I guess is squeezing his fist so tight that he cuts into his own paw.
When he's in that room, he's doing this.
The way it's shot and cut makes no goddamn sense. And it's wild. Like, that is just a basic sequence where you should be showing me that this guy is like, I can't hear it anymore. I can't whatever. But it's just like, they show the priest. He kind of makes a fist. they show Cabal, because I'm like, oh, is he getting stigmata from Cabal? Like, is he a
I
Nightbreed?
I took that character as he was fed up with the faith and fed up with the religion and going a little bit crazy and knew something
But
was
why is
up.
he in jail?
I don't know.
Well,
He probably punched a
He's
guy.
going crazy. They did say that he was like losing it.
He's
And
lost.
I do think like this is where I think this movie is both like modern day franchise pilled in a way that hurts it.
Yeah.
But then I do think that it's got 100% the cool ass Star Wars shit from the 70s where it's just like you can come up with all this.
Yep.
Like it does leaves the perfect amount of threads where you as somebody who is kind of enjoying the ride can think so hard. Yeah, you are filling in so many blanks. Yeah. And like I think you are arguably like, give me 50% less blanks and this is a great movie.
I think like one thing that you said to me, Kane, I saw The Force Awakens with you on the first time I saw it, and afterwards we were walking out of the theater.
I was gonna be like, they have jetpacks. Wrong one.
You were like, the movie was fine, but give me more of that Red Devil robot guy. I want to know what he's up to. I'm like, yeah, that's true. That's what Star Wars is you do want to.
And that's to go back to what you said. I do think that the cantina sequence is shot a bit weird because they're like, let's just do 1 minute of unadulterated shots of different aliens. Yeah.
I really have that. I've been trying to take significantly less notes for these like reviews because I have sort of identified that it is more of a roundtable discussion. We don't need to go over every minute detail. And I found myself watching this movie in a really interesting way where I was just like not taking notes on purpose because I wanted to put it through my short-term memory directly into my long-term memory in a more natural way. And I think that ultimately this movie is going to stick with me for the exact reasons you're talking about, because I just want to know more about this universe. Like I just want
well, that's the point
more
of
this.
And that is like,
you can fill in those blanks and you can create your stories creatively in your mind. As like creative people, you sit down and you're like, I can imagine what Moonhead is doing on Saturday. Someone's sitting on that moon face, I bet. But
he's hanging out with the moon from McDonald's. They go to
he's got a face like he's got a face like a saddle. You find the woman with the extra wide dog.
Oh man, that lady from the bar. I would have loved Moonface. But he's hanging out with Mac tonight. They moon kiss. They have like weird moon kisses.
Doug Jones himself. It's. I do think, and I think that there's something to that, and I do think that's also what you see in this documentary, where it's like it does kind of break my heart that there just wasn't maybe the narrative to make this a great movie, but you see what everyone says, like what Clive Barker told them about their weird individual characters. And actually even like what I said, the lady I liked much, Shuna Sassy, she's like, I'm a dancer, I'm not an actor. I was on my way out the door forever performing. This is like her only movie. Right. And she just said that the choreographer was a guy who had worked with her as a dancer. And he's like, listen, we have this listing for like a sensual person that moves like this. And she said, I wasn't much of an actor, but Clive Barker essentially told me like, I want you to do this, this, and this. And she's like, I truly like studied gymnastics and aerobics for like months just to get my body to be the way it was. But I think everybody had that. Like weirdly, everyone kind of says that, Clive Barker sat them down for 30 minutes and said, hey, do whatever you want, but this is kind of what I want out of this person. And I do think that gives you something. And I think Lucas does that too, right? Where he's just like, I'm going to give you enough. And I think maybe John James Abrams or whatever the hell those stand for didn't do that. Because it's like, we saw plenty of, Gleep Glorp's bar and friggin' Force Awakens.
That's true, yeah.
We saw a lot of Kit Fistos and we didn't care.
Yeah, I think J.J. Abrams had an idea in his head of what Star Wars was, and he wanted to realize that exact notion without, and that sort of begets the sort of issue with Star Wars now, where like everybody has an idea of what Star Wars is. I know that's a can of worms. Yeah, that's a can of worms. No, but this movie has a very distinct vision.
Sure,
right? It just
porcupine woman / bird woman is naked.
Is naked and her quills knock you out or kill you.
One thing I wanted to mention about her character, which I thought was like so mind-bogglingly interesting to me is that she also dreams about him, right? Like he had her in his nightmares, and she's dreaming about him in her nightmares, I guess. Like
again, a brutal thread though, where you're like, shoot, this should have been. The thing should have been maybe that he was torn between Lori, the human who is not Promethean, and Porcupine Woman, who he's been dreaming about his entire life. And the dream seems mostly to be about her. Like it seems deeply that it is her being horny and thrusting towards the screen.
True, yeah, like I mean, the opening makes it seem like she's trying to murder him and he's scared, right? But like,
and I believe that's the dream, right? Like the opening is meant to be the dream.
I think so, yeah. But you could explore that, show the dreams more, and have there be weird sensuality to the dreams that goes beyond a horror movie and into something more erotic that would then, you know, link them together in a way that would probably develop both characters a little bit more interestingly. But again, there's so much going on in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, they also, that's the thing, the Palanquin and her have a relationship that I don't know if it showed much in the Ultimate Cut, but there's a bit of a sex scene that they kind of do the Bill Murray or the like Ghostbusters blowjob on, where you see it in the director's cut for like 1.5 seconds.
They have a makeout moment, but it's you know, it's more, almost feels like a Han Solo Princess Leia final kiss moment where it's like the battle starting where we might both be dead.
That would be good. I love you. I know.
I know.
That should have been the guy whose face is down his gut.
Or he's just like, you're just meat to me.
Yeah. I love you. You're meat.
Goodness.
Yeah. But I it is very strange, Jason, though. And I do think that I compare it a lot to Star Wars in that way, just because I think we all are the age where we lived through, you know, enough of being a kid in the prequels universe where
I've been alive for like most of all of the Star Wars movies except for 2, I think, right? So like I think what year is Jedi?
82.
Okay.
81.
I've been alive for 6 of them. It's the same as you guys.
The same as the rest.
I thought for some reason in my head just for a second I was like, yeah,
you're like, I'm an old man, my hip hurts.
We were all there.
I was born in 1977.
Those re-releases though were pretty prominent in the 90s, right? And then, you know,
that's true, yeah.
The saga began again. And but this movie, I think that it needs 9 movies.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing is like, I think I was also going to say is like, I can say that I think that there is no great version of this movie and also say I really want that TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, and I don't like, there's not a specific problem in the movie. I think, like I say, I don't know that Barker was necessarily the strongest filmmaker just because of like literal technical chops. Yeah. But like, yeah, he set the stage for something that is cool, and it's shocking that there wasn't like an FX show in 2001. That was like, you know, showing us multiple episodes of like figuring out that Decker's the killer.
Remember the Pelican episode, guys? Man, that was crazy. His origin.
And what if he was like running into one? Like, what if just Moonface was on the street and he's like, "No, I'm just seeing things, man." Yeah, like what if you're psychiatrist? I could make a whole show about what if your psychiatrist was a serial killer who is setting you up as a patsy via like hallucinogenics. Forget that you are dreaming of a monster world that's real. That the psychiatrist.
I think
that would be like the end of season 1.
Yeah,
you find out Midian's real.
I think the weakest part of the movie is also the strongest part of the movie is that there's way too much going on in it for you to be able to properly enjoy everything.
I do think a lot of Clive Barker, and that's like I think Hellraiser does a pretty good job of being like, we're gonna barely tell you a damn thing. Yeah. Like you do not know they are called Cenobites. You do not know anything. You do not know whatever.
You have to figure that out for yourself.
It's all, and it's like you do not know what that thing that flips down from the door frame and goes. That sucks.
You need an internet that does not exist yet.
Yeah, exactly.
The internet is the mind,
and that's like what works. And he's maybe just dipping a little too much. And I mean, I love. There's the one creature that's just like. It reminds me a lot of Big Trouble in Little China, where like the Beholder comes out. Like there's a friggin' Beholder here, and that opens a whole new can of worms. Like, what is this flying disc? Whatever the fuck. There's that kind of shit down here.
This place is connected to Faerun.
I was thinking about Big Trouble in Little China a lot during this movie as
Oh
well.
yeah, another movie that is like
is wacky, and they never made a sequel. And there's it asks more questions than answers, and it's a weird kids movie. But like adults were probably like, "This is not for kids. This is crazy."
Yeah. Like we don't often get the 20 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag style narrative, and it still doesn't work. But it doesn't work in a way that is, it's the old, the Benoit Blanc thing of like, it's stupid, but it compels me, like I can't help
it, but I don't know why.
Yeah, I can't help but imagine my own adventures in Nightbreed.
Yeah.
No,
that's why we talk about these.
It's just dumb.
That's why we talk about these kinds of movies. Actually, it's interesting. I after I finished this movie today, I threw on Yoga Hosers. Okay, and it's a bad movie. And I told you guys, I talked about this. The only reason I want to say this is this: I draw a sort of connection here, where in the 80s and 90s, it seemed like filmmakers were making movies that live in our minds in infamy. That's sort of the conceit of this show to begin with. Like, you're at a party, you talk to a person, and you're kind of like, hey, you remember this weird thing? I think that Yoga Hosers was created by Kevin Smith to be a Gen Z version of that. So in 20 years after the movie was made, like, the movie is surprisingly competent, and it's just weird, and kind of like the dialogue's bad, and it's just kind of like bad in a way that's like, in 20 years, are you going to be at a party and be like, do you remember Yoga Hosers? Did we collectively hallucinate the existence of this thing?
In 20 years at a party, if I say, do you remember Yoga Hosers? And the person says yes, I'm getting them pregnant that night, even if
that's what I'm saying. And
even if I'm 60.
Unintentionally, movies like Nightbreed or Big Trouble in Little China, they fall into that sort of category, and it's this movie makes so little sense at times that you're like Steve was saying, you're connecting these dots. You were saying as well, Cam, you're connecting these dots that don't exist because you're so weirdly bored but captivated by that boredom. You know,
I don't know if I would say bored. I don't think this movie is
bored. I think bored
way,
is I think bored is the wrong word, but like confused.
Yeah, and I do think you're also hitting on something that I think, like, this movie came out in 1990.
1990.
So imagine if this movie was a flop and usually probably gets like 1 or 2 runs of VHS. I don't think it actually got much of a DVD run until the Cabal cut came, which is like 2015. So like, this is a movie that had a literal cult. Like, and again, they went nuts producing an art book that was at my library that now runs for like $500 on Amazon. Like, it's a movie that I think just had that ephemera and could have a cult, and you could collect 25 comics from Epix Comics and be like, of a movie that you could talk to a girl at a bar and she'd be like, the what? The night? Yeah. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And then
my parents accidentally
I'm getting a text and I have to go.
Yeah, exactly. What if this was on TV and you saw it as a kid and you were like, what? I saw a movie where a man's face was in his stomach, and
UHF was that? Like, people know who Weird Al is, but you're like, remember UHF? And they're like, what? And the Weird Al movie from 1988, and they're like, what?
I even think that Weird Al, except for like that brief period in the 90s where he was like the top, and also in Canada, it's weird because we had him on Much Music. But I do think that Weird Al was a thing where it took the internet for people to be like, hey, wait a minute, do we all like Weird Al? Like, even from cool people to losers, we all agree that he's pretty good. And that was like, we all like Weird Al. He's a completely unproblematic king. But yeah, I wanted to say also, I want to play the tune about me being too intellectual, because I recently read a book that is
series.
Yeah,
there he is. I haven't heard Chucky all night.
Wow. I read a book, by which I mean, of course, I read a graphic novel by Box Brown. But he does these kind of biography / history graphic novels, and did one called The He-Man Effect, how American toy makers sold you your childhood. And it's about essentially marketing to children, and also just the development of marketing.
The Toys That Made Us is a...
Yeah. So he actually even talks about the toys that made us. But he has a very interesting theory in the book, because he kind of draws from the development of marketing around World War One through whatever, and then there's kind of the fight in the 70s and 80s about marketing children and what like He-Man and She-Ra and like all Transformers, G.I. Joe kind of gets into all of that. But he also kind of points out that is sort of the last time, because he talks about a lot about brain development and imagination and like what you require to enjoy like imaginative play as a kid. And that essentially like Disney and everybody has screwed themselves by so nicely inserting like a narrative into our imaginative play, but that had very specific limits. So now when you see Star Wars or when you see Transformers, you can feel, well, that's not Transformers.
Right.
Like I know the limits. I've
That's not the one that
I've spent
like.
my whole life imagining different stories, but within a set of parameters. And so that's kind of his interesting thing. And I do wonder that, like, I do think Nightbreed is kind of that 70s and 80s feel where it's like they don't set too many parameters.
Yeah.
So it really is up to you to imagine, and it lets your imagination run with the ideas. And that's kind of the problem with modern stuff is they're afraid to let your imagination go too far.
I'm a fan of professional wrestling.
Oh,
I
really?
have been. I
What?
have been for about 30.
Even Naked Midian?
About 30 years. And that context has changed so many times. And
I love
this
it.
character existed at the height of wrestling popularity, of the all-time height of Rock Austin, Naked Midian. Okay, so the context for wrestling alone has changed that many times. In that same, like, I know who my favorite wrestlers are, and they talked a certain way and they wrestled a certain way.
The gobbledygooker, number one.
Number one, he debuted this year. He debuted at Survivor Series.
He's back?
1990.
The gobbledygooker's
No.
back?
In 1990 when this movie
Okay.
took place. Who knows?
I don't know.
But
Tough
yeah,
to tell because it's England standing in for Northern Alberta.
But that's a really good way to look at it. And I think that if Nightbreed was created now, the fans would hate it. They'd be like, "That's not it. That sucks."
Yeah, I mean that's the tough thing. Is it's like I do want that show, but it's also like
AMC's Nightbreed. Why is it on AMC? That's the channel that had.
why is
Breaking
Austin
Bad.
Butler Cabal?
Every character?
You just named like one of the most beloved shows of all time.
AMC's
No,
Nightbreed?
Well, I think that, like, to your point, Cam, it's still happening. It's going to happen forever, right? Like Star Wars is the thing. I mean, even the Acolyte now is like people are just
I know,
unable to like it.
But I even feel that where I'm like, you told me this was going to be 100 years before the previous, and it looks the fucking same. And I played fucking Fall of Jedi Fallen Order, and they showed a cool robot, and you ain't even got those fucking robots.
Where are my cool robots? Yeah.
Like, where are the Art Deco robots that seem kind of cool?
Yeah, I mean, but I understand it. I get it, but it's an unfortunate reality, right? Like we're not allowed.
No, and I do think that's also like, yeah, I do wonder if but then at the same time, does any Gen Z kids don't even nightbreed anymore? They just eat ass.
Yeah, they just eat ass. They're going to ask about. Like,
that's what
90
nightbreeding means
90.
now.
Oh my
Eating
god,
ass.
yeah.
Yeah, neighbors up and
Necker wouldn't even have to
the
kill
toilet.
Gen Z because he'd be like,
I
"You
think
guys are on TikTok too long."
It's one of those
Yo,
things
girl,
where, like,
use me as a skibbity toilet.
as much as we're talking about
That's
how
true.
we would
The
love-
skibbity toilet would be in Midian.
Oh god. I'm gonna make a
one of the
bleep
new
button for
monsters.
anytime we say skibbity toilet now, we're gonna make a noise of an old man falling over. My hair.
Well, we need to appeal to Twitch.
I fell off the skibbity toilet because of all my riz.
My
Yeet.
riz weighed me down.
Adding yeet to that is especially pathetic.
Right? Because that's from like Vines originally. Anyway,
Yeah.
let me
All
just
your
tell you guys,
skibbity toilet are belong to
are
us.
belong to us. Mr. Bean. Yeah, we already kind of covered this next part. But Nightbreed struggle. Tucker convinces local law enforcement to raid Midian. Boone emerges as the leader. He's defending the Midian from the human attackers. And then we get the cinematic battle that the Nightbreed, defend themselves against the humans, but Boone kind of has to teach them how to fight because they're weird demons from the nether realm of the
They've been
Shadow
down there so
Walkers.
long they don't remember how to fight.
But they're like peaceful is what is the vibe that I got. But they have the berserkers. At their beck
Berserkers
and
are
call.
uncontrollable. That's
Uncontrollable
why they're locked up
nightmares.
beneath the earth. But beneath the sub-earth, it's like sub-Midian.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, they're all monsters with ways of consuming humans. And like, the guy who, I don't know if this is in the cut or not that you watched, but the guy who has little snakes that come out of his belly, there's a scene where he essentially uses the snakes as like hypnotism devices. They hypnotize a guy so that he can eat him, basically.
Well, he does this thing where
It's like a reverse snake charmer where he uses snakes to charm you.
Yeah, they come out of his belly and then they wrap around his neck. But is that when they?
So in the cut that I watched, they come up and they go around him, and then he's like staring at the guy, and then the snakes kind of go in front of him, and they have an eyeball in each mouth, and then the guy kind of like gets hypnotized by the snakes, and then
I would have remembered that.
Yeah, I was. It's also the music, or sorry, the sound all cuts out at that moment. So I'm like, I think they added this, but the quality of the shots were still quite high. So I'm like, I think this might be added for specifically the version I'm watching that these guys aren't going to see right now. But it shows that they had. So you can imagine this guy, this we'll call him Snake Belly.
Snake Belly.
Yeah, Snake Belly. You can imagine like how he would use that power to devour humans if he were out in whatever his hunting ground would be. To hypnotize people to make them docile in order to devour them.
Oh man, would you believe that Snake Belly's quote, his 90s quote of "There goes the neighborhood," is it on IMDb quotes? That
It's
seems
not.
like it must be for the trailer, right?
He has a lot of one-liners. His whole
He's
thing
definitely.
like,
I think
The
he
whole
pulls
thing
it
is the
off.
one-liners,
He
yeah.
pulls it off better than the face. But yeah, like as Jason was saying, it's all we have is the weird part where like, wait, your tentacles have eyes and they're stabbing out that guy's eyes.
Yeah, because I
what
remember
does it
that
need the
part
eyes
where
for?
they
It'd be funny if it spit out the old eyes and took his eyes as
Yeah.
a new eye.
like a hermit crab.
And then it tipped the guy. Thank you.
Boone does kill
I
Decker
only
during
have change.
this segment too. Like a lot happens in this.
Yeah, which
So-
sucks kind of, but I mean they do have the rope bridge fight, which kind of rules.
Well, that final battle reminds me of a more modern movie final battle. They go kind of fast now with those end moments, and
Yeah.
it's more about the.
There's
right
also
before
like a
and right
large
after.
chunk of the movie that we're skipping over that I suppose could just. I mean, we're skipping over it because it doesn't. Nothing really happens.
No, and it's
Yeah.
all over the fucking
But
place. I mean,
yeah,
you
it could be lifted
introduced the shitty cop,
The priest, all
who
these
who
additional
has a
characters.
militia, and I do like him because it's just like it's like introducing Darth Vader, where you're just like,
Yeah,
hey, you want to kill all these fucking guys? Oh, listen, buddy, I
Let's
got a
do
whole
it.
army, no problem.
he's got a Michael Rooker energy to him. He's got like kind of like a little
no, like a
high-pitched voice.
shitty like Michael Rooker has like high T. This is like low T. Michael Rooker,
Right?
It's like,
Yeah.
my wife doesn't sleep with me anymore,
Yeah.
but I've got a million Claymore mines somewhere in a
My
shack
mom-
in Alberta.
My wife keeps asking me for an open relationship, and I keep saying no, but she keeps asking me anyway.
My wife dates Palin Quinn.
Do you guys know what a cucking means?
Yeah.
And he even his voice is kind of like comically high for a lot of it. Like
Mhm.
when he's doing the low talking, he has a little bit of menace to him. Like he
Yeah.
just like
Yeah, he is
being
good.
blunt.
Like he seems like a creepy sadist, and actually the bit with Cabal is pretty creepy. Considering you're like, listen, I know that this is Monster Jesus. I know he's probably going to be fine, but he does a good job of beating the shit out of him in his cell.
Yeah, and he's doing it for like personal reasons. He definitely has a
He's just like a
home life.
killer in my neighborhood. Yeah,
Exactly.
and I do like the weird bit with the cop and the doctor, where the doctor's like, "This man has no pulse; he's dead," and the cop just shoots because he's like, "Oh shit, I can get away with even worse police abuses, no
Let me just
problem."
shoot him. He's already got a couple of bullet holes in him.
Yeah, real ACAB movie for sure, except for the one FBI agent. But
yeah. I mean, also there just to continuously hard pencil underline, humans are the monsters here, not the monsters. It's the humans that are
Yeah.
monsters.
It is funny that also that last battle that we were talking about has both the FBI agent being like, hey, this is fucked up. And the priest being like, there are women and children mostly.
Most of them, yeah. There's a couple that can kill us, but the most of the people are running to hide from you. Just
it might hit a little harder these days, but I'm not saying anything, Twitch. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Don't say it.
I'd also like to
follow Hassan Piker for more information.
I'd like to point out too that like all of the monsters in this whole universe are fucking sick and twisted nightmares. And when Cabal changes, he's just like still handsome. Just
I do think that kind of sucks. Yeah. Especially when he's like, "Don't look at me." It's
should have got.
Wait, you're just a shirtless hunk.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because it's because they designed all of the look of Cabal before they had him, to work with. But they should, the way that his face is shaped as an actor. I don't know if you've seen him recently. He looks more or less the same, just
and again, it's a funny one where I'm like, I don't. Yeah, he's kind of an actor that is just like fully fine. Like I don't think he's a bad actor. I don't think he's a great actor. It seems like he's more of a theater guy, but very, very handsome. You can't deny that. He's like a handsome leading man type.
But he also has this sort of like large lower jaw, right? Like
he's got like a lantern jaw.
Yeah, he's got like his head is shaped like a shoebox, but like it's in a good way. But it seems in
a good way. I want to fuck that shoebox. What kind of shoes you got in that box, mister?
His face seems built to have orc teeth. Like he should have big orc teeth that come out.
I see it.
Am I wrong?
No, you're this whole chat has devolved into DeviantArt so quick.
I want him to have underjaw tusks that come up like a warthog. I think he should have warthog teeth, and I think it would have made Nightbreed look cooler. But
he kind of looks like Steve Rannazzisi.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's like handsome Steve Rannazzisi.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. Like less freaky looking.
No, yeah, and he also never claimed he did 9/11 or whatever. But,
no, he said he was in the building during 9/11, and that's why he got canceled.
Yeah, he took a warp whistle out of there.
Look at that! You're telling me that some bottom jaw orc teeth wouldn't make him look cool as heck? I don't know. That's just me, but
no, it's true. And I do.
A demon character doing blackface? That's a conversation.
I mean, there's a couple. Palanquin. Yeah. I was a little shocked to find out that was a white British man. Yeah, it was funny when you're like, Tanaka's in this, and I was like, oh, Palanquin, and then I was like, oh no, it's the cop. Okay.
Yeah.
Her.
When I watched it, I was like, I can tell that this is a guy doing a voice. So like, I wasn't that shocked to find out that it was a white British man, but he's definitely doing a certain type of an American accent that is particularly coded.
I think it's fine. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes, it feels away, but I also think that actually speaks to shitty British TV and the fact that you make every Klingon a black person for a while.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's something to be said of who we make our Nightbreed, Jason.
Yeah, the Ferengi as well as another race.
That's gonna be my closing question to you guys. Is like, if you were a Nightbreed, what Nightbreed would you be?
If you were a Nightbreed, what time of day would you breed?
Oh man.
Yeah. Craig Schaefer's really interesting because he's like continued to act.
Here's a question. Here's a note that I wrote. Actually, it's not really a question. Old Face Rip talks about the berserkers who will rip out your head and shit down your neck. So Duke Nukem actually loves two movies. He loves They Live and he loves Nightbreed.
Yeah. I don't know that this is the origin of rip off your head and shit down your neck, but I think Duke Nukem has admitted at this point.
Yeah, no. If you play Duke Nukem Forever, at the end of the game, he says, "My favorite movie, Nightbreed."
He does. And also They Live.
When you tip the stripper 5 times in a row, he goes, "You should watch the Cabal Cut." I know you might have seen this movie on cable, but there's a better cut.
Have you seen the Ultimate Cabal cut on YouTube?
Yeah.
All right.
That's incredible.
You remind me of this stripper that's like a porcupine.
I love the Baphomet statue. I think we were pretty much talking.
Yes,
about
I do like that too, and it's
Oh,
also
yeah.
kind of implied. That also feels like a video game thing, where it's like kind of
it's
implied that
deteriorating.
part
through the
of his
movies, too.
body, like some of it
Yeah.
is his body, and some of it's a statue. And
Yeah.
and I
Doesn't
do
he
like
wink at one point?
that. Yeah,
It's like
and it's like, yeah, heal me. Yeah, like be, beyond. I do like that quest again. That's a 2-movie quest where it's like find a Numidian and bring me back to life. Like Jesus never had to do that. God wasn't like, hey Jesus, can you make me flesh again?
Not to keep going back to like making this into a series, but if they did do it, they could even just make it the same amount of time that's passed in the Nightbreed universe to now.
Oh,
and
for
it would
sure.
still be interesting. They could have.
Yeah, and again, like you say, Craig Schaefer looks the same age. He should either be the Decker or he's got to be something.
Or he's the same
crazy
character,
cop?
Yeah.
or
Maybe
the TV show takes place in like 1999.
He's the
kind
new
of
eyeball
thing,
guy,
like the
and
cool
he's like the
90s show.
wise. He's the
Yeah.
wise. He's the wise in
True.
Nightbreed now. Yeah.
It's like the guy in Battlestar Galactica where they brought him back, and he's
Right.
like the old Cylon.
Yeah. Oh, it's the possibilities.
Yeah.
But it'll never happen, even though I really wanted to.
I do wonder though, that's also the thing. Like there are a lot of these authors that are like, their stuff is pretty unapproachable. I think Lovecraft's a good example.
Yeah.
I think Gaiman is a pretty good example.
Yeah.
But it just takes the right artist, and
I think if anything, time has proven that like the things that we've thought have been unapproachable are not quite as unapproachable as we think, as long as we approach them from a different angle that people aren't really expecting us to go in.
Yeah, and honestly, the weirdest thing with Nightbreed is like it's hard to imagine it with not practical effects for the how do you do the monsters,
which is also a thing that is in the last 10 years or so people have started to realize is the way to go and appreciate more, and it's kind of leaning back in that direction, which is super refreshing. I don't know.
Alex Winter on the blower. I think we're also all ignoring that there's a great later adaptation of Nightbreed called Hotel Transylvania.
That was my follow-up. That was my follow-up answer for that Cantina question I had earlier. The
Blobby, Frankenstein, they're all there.
Yeah, everyone's there. The Invisible Man.
It's a hidden place for monsters to be.
You couldn't see him, but he
Hotel
was there.
Transylvania.
The Mummy.
Clive Barker, I know you're in the chat. Tell us what you think of Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah, Clive Barker on your deathbed. Tell us what you're thinking now.
It's not. I at this point is at least not his deathbed, because he's been dying for about
for a long time.
12
years. He's written in the chat, modern feminist masterpiece.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm sorry about those Bill Maher comments earlier. It sounds like you're woke AF, sir.
I liked how the mob forms, there's that scene where he's just like perving out over all the different weapons. They're showing different like AK-47s.
Right. It's like the classic. This is very cartoonish too. Jason, you were talking about cartoony stuff earlier. This is so cartoony. Like in some movies it's cool, in some movies it's goofy. In this movie it is absolutely goofy as fuck because he's so proud.
This like 8 minutes reminds me a little bit of like the last couple Michael Myers movies, the last couple Halloweens, where like mobs getting.
I thought you meant like Austin Powers movies,
or Austin Powers. But when they're they're driving,
Austin Powers ends with "Evil dies tonight," and they just kill him.
When they're driving through like
Dr. Evil,
when they're driving through that like wooded like street area, and the cars are just all over the road. Like just for some reason I was captivated by the fact that they're driving so fast, so chaotically, and they're just trying to get there to just murder these monsters.
And that is the like again depressingly prescient thing where it's like now more than like this is just a weird mega mob of like preppers who have been waiting for a thing of
Civil War.
It would be so much easier to explain this rural cop who has a million mines and a militarized police force for no reason
Today
that just
than it was
has
back
been
then, yeah.
foaming at the mouth for a city full of monsters to destroy.
It is wild
that's-
to think
yeah.
about, yeah. Like how, remember like the Doomsday Prepper TV shows that were on when we were like teenagers and early 20s and stuff, and we're like, these people are fucking crazy. And now it's like, oh, these people
I kind of wish I had a bomb filter filled
and
with
yeah, sure.
KD.
And I also think that it's like you could be way more explicit. Like it's surprising that these guys aren't like white supremacists or you know, you could be
they
so
were,
much-
they just didn't show that on TLC.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I find that part very fascinating. And yeah, again, and also it's like funny because like you were saying, the Nightbreed are mostly peaceful, but they really get the upper hand because these guys are dumb as shit.
Yeah.
Like again, Quill lady being like doo 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 doo, and it's like whoa titties, and she just like, she kills like 10 guys. Yeah, so stupid. Just shoot the monster. You've all got AK-47.
But then, like, so this is another thing is this also felt added, but I couldn't be certain. The part where they're sort of like first casing the upper Meridia or Meridian, what is it called? Midian. I want to say Meridian every time.
Here, let me help you.
Oh, there we go. I forgot that.
I kind of feel bad. Like they should have, just to be nice, given him a larger fanny pack. You know, give him like a Celtic spore and
yeah,
give the man some shame.
But yeah, there's a sequence where they're first casing Midian, and one of the cops is like a nervous, like kind of guy, and he just starts like shooting randomly, and he almost shoots Panaka in the side of the head, and everybody's like, "You fucking NPC cuck dildo," and like they grab him and throw him off to the side, and then when he sees the guy explode, he starts barfing and everything, right? And this is when they start to realize the magic is incurred. But like, did that all happen in your cut? Because it seemed very
there was actually a lot of that.
Yeah, at one point the Michael Rooker like main local cop guy calls the priest the F slur also, which is we've done a lot of movies where we were expecting that word to come up.
But also, Clive Barker does that a lot because he's like, remember, this is a bad word.
Yeah, for sure. Clive Barker is also a very fascinating character where I think he makes these super queer movies that are also like, somewhat explicit, not explicit. This isn't shoving it down your throat like current woke culture.
But he's gonna make you stare at a sweet man's butt and not show you any breasts.
But I also think that Hellraiser is like deeply about horny heterosexual people. Like it's about a heterosexual couple that is like, we need to find
bring back my fucking adultery.
It makes it I mean,
so I can fuck him once more. Not
to like hone too much in on Hellraiser, but it also makes those relationships seem deeply unhealthy and strange and twisted and fucked up, right? Like,
oh sure, I mean that, the Frank putting on the dad's skin to being like in love with his daughter, like that's like an uncle-daughter incest.
I don't know if I would call it in love so much as I would say just a horrible rapist. He's probably
well, I mean, listen, he recently escaped from hell. You can't. He's got hell PTSD.
That's true.
Remember when that one monster put natural human blood on her titty like this? She did that one with the blood. That was pretty great.
That's the other thing. It's like
I don't remember.
I
actually don't remember.
The heterosexuality in this movie is gross, scary. The gay stuff is good. I'm okay with just looking at a guy's butt as he goes up the stairs. That's nice.
Sure. I will say that the real bare butt was only in the ultimate cut.
Oh,
I did make note.
Well, then I changed what I said earlier. I recommend. I recommend it. I can give you the time code.
So after Decker defeats our boy, after Cabal defeats our boy Decker, we sort of get Midian is destroyed. Boone founds to find a new sanctuary for the Nightbreed. And the film ends with Brood and Laurie sort of looking forward to a new future together, while the remaining Nightbreed characters are like in a barn waiting for their messiah, which I thought was like all of this last like 10 minutes of the movie is like, this is all sequel bait. Setting up a sequel.
And also is brutal because you're like, well, how far did that giant group of Nightbreed go? Because
Yeah.
like in our cut and probably your cut, it has the ending with Cabal turning Lori into Nightbreed
Right. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
save her. Which is also awesome on her part, where she's like, "Oops, I fucking killed myself. I guess you got to change me into Nightbreed."
Yeah.
That kind of rules. And again, yeah, she kind of has agency. She's kind of not like a lady around, but again, it just fits outside the usual narrative.
Well, he's like, yeah, I'll come back for you, obviously. And she's like, yeah, when I'm 90 and I'm like,
Yeah, I do like that too. Which is like,
same.
You're immortal. And
I just watched you take a knife through the chest and then
Yeah.
kill the final monster with the knife through your chest.
then like be like, "Hey, hold this." Like,
Yeah. He's got the
Yeah.
ace. And when he had the little ace card on his
Yeah.
stomach, I was like, ace up your sleeve. I like the symbology.
Yeah, it's interesting, but you are also like, well, wait, why? They don't quite establish why they have to be apart, because it's like, well, certainly you're in walking distance of that bar, because none of these guys, they do mention flying and turning into mist and stuff, but we never see it.
No.
Yeah.
So it's very odd.
I wonder what her Nightbreed powers are. We know what his Nightbreed powers are. He gets real strong. I guess.
I was worried that she was
His
going to
main
come
one.
back as one of the really horrible monsters, and he's like, ugh.
Yeah, she's the fat guy whose face is in his belly.
Yeah. Or she just has like boobs on the side of her face, like all the way
Mhm.
going all the way down into her
I feel
legs and
like-
knees.
I feel like Cabal will be like, well,
I'm into it. I just got cool face tattoos, but you got 45 more breasts.
Listen, I kind of got a dream thing with this porcupine lady. I'm not sure she's got quills on her pussy, so I'm gonna check it out.
I'm
I
gonna
haven't-
try.
Again, would be more interesting. I would love to see a weird situation where he's torn between her and Lori.
This is also, I do think, though, where like Clive Barker's books, at least what I've dealt with, are so sexual, and I think he just knew that he couldn't get away with it, and he just doesn't have that. But it's like that is actually missing part of what is interesting in his narratives, is they are often dealing with sex and touching on sex.
Yeah.
And I know, but at the same time, I do know that he, yeah, thank you. I do know that he like approved that last Hellraiser movie, which did have some slightly more edgy stuff, but was actually not that sexual. So I don't know.
I think it's like what you said before, is like he knows what he can get away with, and maybe like in his old age, he's kind of like, yeah, I don't need to do it as much as I used to, because it's not as provocative anymore when you got skibbity toilets and people falling over and asking for a dap up or whatever and saying no cap after they
no cap.
Yeah. Is Midian here, cap or no cap?
Yeah. I've fallen and broke my ribs. Help me.
Can we get another thumbs down from Jesse in the chat? That's all I care about. I've fallen.
I have
Help
a
me,
note
I've
here.
rizzed and I can't get up.
I've raised and I can't get it up. I have a note here from oh my god. Real Feels is still here. Real Feels.
You are
MVP of the evening.
You are Baphomet's strongest soldier, really.
Yeah.
You
I
have
hope-
you are
I hope
Cabal.
you're at work or playing a video game or something. Because,
Yeah.
He's the true Messiah. He's going to lead us to the
you
new
are
meridian.
Cabal.
Yeah.
There is a note that AI gave me here that says, in a final twist, Decker is resurrected by one of the Nightbreed's former enemies, setting up potential future conflicts. When was that?
I think that is only in the ultimate cut. It
happens.
The priest.
Also, the
Priest resurrects him with the blood of Baphomet.
But and
okay.
the priest also kills the cop. I don't know if we.
Yeah, so I have that because the last time we see the cop,
The black cop, Panaka.
No, the sheriff.
the Michael Rooker style cop.
I did that. That happened in our cut.
Okay.
He kills Rooker. Yeah.
Yeah, he throws it like he's
But
letting
Rooker
the,
in that
like-
moment also is like, I want to be one too. Like he decides
Yes.
he wants to be
Yes.
a Nightbreed. Yeah,
And he
which
goes,
is interesting.
"Too bad, bitch."
Yeah, that's exactly what he says. He says, "God
Yes.
says you're a bitch."
He goes, "So I love dark meat, like Freddy."
Oh no! And then Kelly Boylan calls him the F slur.
He says you'll no longer be known as the sheriff. You'll be known as D's. And he's like, D's? And he says, D's nuts. And then he crushes his throat. His eyes pop out. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Well, we did it. The new format seems to work. Thanks to ChatGPT. I think that I've covered.
I will say, in my work, I have found that ChatGPT is especially terrible at summarizing movies. Just as a warning.
I have the next couple of movies like out, and they're all kind of like what I did tonight, and I think this was the best flow so far that
Do you guys think that David Cronenberg would be back to do this if we asked him?
The man is in his 80s, but yes. I don't know. He likes I don't know. He used to love showing up as a guest. He loved showing up as a guest star enough. He read my 4th year student film, which had him as kind of a
so you know him,
Coach McGurk character. No, my producer knew his daughter, and he read it and said no. But
I would settle for David Cronenberg's daughter to come onto the show.
We're not talking
Caitlin
about
Cronenberg. She just had a new.
Right now.
No, Caitlin just had a new movie. It looks good. It had Enrique Colantoni. It was the one where like the government pays you to kill yourself, but then the parents runs away.
Yeah,
it looks good.
Son of Cronenberg also.
Yeah, Brandon also good. He also has a son with an earlier wife. Made a movie called Rhinoceros Eyes. It's pretty good.
Gestenberg.
Oh my god! If you could get an all Cronenberg month,
maybe he would come on.
I just
to like
message...
say 5 minutes of like, "Hello, this is David Cronenberg. Yes, I was in Nightbreed.
Yeah,
good night.
Hello, this is David Cronenberg. Please stop calling me.
Just a phone message. I will read the poem you wrote me. It's good.
And I will say,
Nightbreed.
Please buy NPC cuck dildos at the Hey, have you seen this one store? And Gabba Gabba Hey or whatever.
Baba Booey. Okay.
Yeah, so Baba Booey. That's what I wanted. Thank you, Jason. It was Baba Booey.
We've covered the movie. We're in at time, which is great. I was just kind of saying, I think I've finished all my notes for the most part. Priest gets jazzed on and becomes a monster, I guess. Mm-hmm. Shot of Midian on fire. Cabal has work to do, but Leah wants to go. Blah blah blah. She dies. Yeah. I'm in my notes. I'm pretty much like Home Alone of it all, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty close to being done. Yeah. The only notes I have is
you guys have any additional notes?
Would any cop ever believe Cronenberg? Like, it does feel like his plan is so bad.
Especially he's got a gun and jumps out of the way.
Oh, I do think cops would believe that. I mean,
I do also believe that all cops
he's like, my hands are clearly empty.
Yeah. Sorry to the law enforcement in the chat, but I do believe you don't even need to do the amount of theater he did.
He probably could have just jumped in.
Yeah, he probably could have just gotten out of the car and gone, he's got a gun.
All of that is sort of theory corner coded.
Sorry, I don't want to get too deep in the north of Athabasca, east of Peace River is where you can find Midian.
I just like it.
No, I mean, you guys have the drops.
Yeah. We like to drop it. Speaking of which, do you want to talk about our Home Alone of it all?
If you had to pick one, what do you think the Home Alone of it all? When is the Home Alone of it all? Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone of it all? I really gotta know. When is the Home Alone of it all? What is the Home Alone of it all? Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
It is weird that we have a Christmas song in every episode.
It's true. It used to be just that great Home Alone theme, but I was just no more copyright strikes from
Russia.
YouTube. Yeah, from Russia. It just drives me nuts.
Home Alone music on YouTube.
In Russia, alone leaves you at home.
Yes, perfect. The rules are simple. There's no rules. Basically, in the film adaptation of the book Home Alone, when Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprint.
Is this AI again?
Yeah, I'm reading this directly from AI. No, basically in the movie Home Alone, the part we're all there to see is how Kevin McAllister destroys his opponents with horrible traps. But really the conceit of that idea that I sort of came up with is that every movie sort of has that moment that you're sort of there for. You're there to see. Over the years now, we've sort of posited that it's sort of the beginning of the cool part of the movie. It could be the trailer moment, or even just sometimes it's the third act. But why you shake your head no?
In this
Me?
movie, it's the 15th act.
Yeah,
Third act.
Yeah.
But with that, and you've done this before, Cam. Since the guest always goes first, what's your home alone of it all for this movie?
You guys are monsters making the guest go first every time.
Yeah.
Well, first let me say I feel like I'm at Outback Steakhouse because it's no rules, just right. But I do think the Home Alone of it all, in spite of there's a few Home Alones of it all.
Agreed.
I would say that it is when the cops attack Midian. Like, you do just want to see all these guys off the leash. And maybe even, as much as I think the behemoths are stupid, once they
Berserkers?
once they mention, let's release those berserkers, you're like, yeah.
I want to see them out.
Yeah. So it is the fight, and I'm just seeing all the guys use their powers, and even what I would say, maybe it even starts at the kind of prison break with the mom and Cutface Narcisse doing their fun attacking cops. Once cops start dying, I'm all in, baby.
Like, conversationally wise, I'll just go next because it's the same. The siege on Midian is my Home Alone at all. But I did make a note very early in my notes that the second he fucking like starts tripping out and starts seeing all kinds of crazy shit, that was it. But I think that this movie excels when it makes the most sense when the cops are like, we hate those Nightbreed. Let's drive as fast as we can in a 4-car row down this country street and kill them all and crash our Jeep right into Midian itself.
Yeah, and I do think it sets up the, like, what if humans find Midian? And almost immediately is like, humans fucking found Midian. They're coming to kill you.
They're here already. Yeah.
How about you, Steve?
I do agree with you guys that is when the movie really gets going. But for me,
you also watched a 3.5-hour version.
Yeah,
it might be a little bit more nuanced.
For me, the movie never got.
Yeah, there isn't one. It's for me, the Home Alone of it all is when I went to bed after watching this.
For me, it was being home alone,
just being home alone the whole time.
Ultimate Cabalka.
For me, I'll go with the first time I watched the movie because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even really look into it before Cam, you had recommended it to me. So for me, the moment that the Home Alone started was the moment that he cuts his face off and he starts talking about Meridian and he's like, I need to get back there. And that's when you start to realize that, like, Meridian is real. It exists outside of the confines of this graveyard. It exists in your hospitals. It exists in the streets around you. And it starts to unlock the mysteries of the movie for me. And it made it far more intriguing. And that's when I started to really get into it. I felt it kind of difficult. Even seeing Paula Quinn and Moonhead, I still was kind of like, okay, I like these guys. They're interesting and cool. But that's the moment where I was like, oh, it exists outside of this place as well. And, that's when the lore of the world that was being created kind of got to me, and I was like, I'm sold. I'm home aloneing it all right now.
I feel that, and I would also say that I am almost, if I think back to like the first time I ever saw it, it's the Cronenberg killing the family, where you're just like, okay, there's a serial killer, there's a guy. What is even before the monsters? I think that you just want to, and it's building up of this showdown. It's doing the like Reacher thing of like, can't wait till Cabal and this mask
kills Button Eyes. I want to see Button Eyes Zipperhead.
If that sequence where he's killing the family is 3.5 minutes long, I could probably put duality to it. I push my fingers into my eyes, and it might be the perfect Slipknot video.
Honestly, based on those masks you showed me of Slipknot, Slipknot's into it. They're in.
I do also like. I wanted to say about that scene where he's cutting his face off because we didn't really talk about it. Get this out of here.
Sorry.
That's guys.
Yeah, when he pulls off his face, you see the sort of like lizard skin underneath, right? Like this weird monster skin underneath it. And
that is mysterious on its own, and nobody is really commenting on it. The doctors, the nurses, they're just kind of like, he cut his own face off, or they thought that he did it, I guess. At first.
And Cronin, this is another one where it seems
I thought it was meant to be muscle, like the.
Yeah, but no, there's some sort of monster face.
It looks like a monster, yeah.
Yeah, it's got like scaly. I also feel like that's the interesting thing where I don't know if your cut had. It seems like there's a drop scene where Cronenberg is particularly cruel to him, and because he goes in for him.
He goes in. He's like, there's a long moment where they're like, well, what are we gonna do? And he's like, well, I can talk to him, but I'm gonna need privacy or whatever. And he goes in and like closes the blinds, and you can hear him doing stuff. You don't really see it, but you get the idea that later on there's a piece of dialogue where he's like, you made me say things that I never would have said had you not made me do it. That's the moment where the movie started to kick off for me.
No, I think that is a very good one too. I want to shout out, just so I don't forget as well, I think an equal thing when we were talking about like authors who aren't adapted well, and my apologies to his many victims, Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere. There's a TV show that is kind of the same, where I'm always like, somebody remake this, somebody make a movie of this.
Neverwhere, the one with the like mysterious doorways to a different dimension.
Yes, where essentially you're like homeless
a million years ago,
and you're trying to, and like once
it's like pretty punk.
Yeah, and once you commit to being part of that society, you're like invisible to regular life.
Yeah, I read that.
But there's like pursuant, and so that's when he like, I think he maybe did a radio show first, did a book, and there's a TV show that is pretty good and like kind of full of like Game of Thrones people that you would be kind of into, but looks cheap, doesn't quite do it. But again, it's like a world that you're like, that is like a world I can't get out of my head. I can't stop thinking about. Somebody should redo this. It's so good.
I read American Gods, and then I read that like when I was like 22, so I was like, this is affecting my whole reality.
Yeah.
I watched Zeitgeist around that time. Remember the movie Zeitgeist?
Oh my god.
It's my jaw. It's all the way down, man.
Yeah. Another one. Did you ever watch Gormenghast? That weird one.
Yeah, I watched Gormenghast.
Yeah.
That's
like also like where you're just like, I'm going to show you the tiny corner of a fantasy world where you're like, I want to know everything. What are you doing? Yeah.
Show me more.
I mean, God damn her.
God damn.
Fucking J.K. Rowling. She did it well too. I want to know more about those fucking,
What about Ascaria, Cam? No,
elves. Yeah. I mean.
Ascaria is a book that's coming out.
I've learned enough.
I've learned enough. I'm tired of Ascaria now.
No, I just played Callisto Effect and was like, oh, this is a real Steve game.
Yeah, I started playing it as well. It's Dead Space, but it's not starting as it's starting a little bit too in your face for me.
Extremely generic, I will say. It does not come up with much new. But I was like,
speaking of games, do you guys want to play a game?
Do you want to play a game?
Oh my god, a game! Are you talking about the game?
I am.
It's time to play Guess the MPAA.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jack Nightbreed, and I'm here to tell you about a new hit game that everybody's playing around the world. The rules are simple. Each and every day, a movie is given an MPAA certificate rating, which indicates what its rating is between G-rated and NC-17. But don't worry, that's irrelevant. On this game show, there's a 5-digit number. Okay? 2 of those numbers I'm going to give you. All you have to do is tell me what the next 3 digits are between 000 and 999. Okay. We've changed the rules.
Why have you adjusted this like affectation to your
I don't know.
Jason just really loved those recent South Park specials that are
Jack Nightbreed doesn't
specifically trying to murder Kathleen Kennedy.
It's not Jason. It's Jack Nightbreed.
Oh yeah, I
Jack
forgot.
Nightbreed.
Mr. Mackey. Yeah.
Cam, since the last time you were on the show, the rules have changed slightly. Before
I don't even remember the rules of this originally, so don't worry.
Before I
We
would
get
go back
one
and forth
more
twice.
guess than you did last time.
Yes, last week, because we added that, Steve got it correct. He's the only person ever
That's
got it correct.
insane.
in probably 30 episodes of us doing this.
Yeah.
So basically, this week, also inconsequential, the first two digits are 30. But Cam,
Okay.
as the guest, you go first. Give us a number between 000 and 999. I'll tell you if it's higher or lower.
30562.
No. Oh. That's making it more complicated. You're making it more complicated.
562.
Crow. Lower.
It is lower than that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 300.
So 30300.
Yeah.
Lower.
30248.
Lower.
30199.
Cam, for your final guess, lower.
30069, my brother.
Steve, higher.
30121.
Ooh. I can't play the song.
Can we get another thumbs down in the chat?
You're trying to put the farts. Just a little preview. This is what it used to sound like. Sorry, I stopped it immediately.
Have to stop doing that to me.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Real Phils.
Thank you, Real
This is your best fan.
Real Phil,
Y'all should give this person whatever they want.
Yeah, you can have whatever you want. I hope that you come back
knew
for another show.
why Pinhead hated the Nightbreed. They knew everything.
I want to
Did you
know why this person,
another
apropos of
Night-
nothing, just
It's
thumbs down this.
Jesse. Because we
Oh,
were talking about Skibbity Toilet. I think he
Right.
failed.
yeah.
I tried to goad him into another thumbs down, and he didn't do it. So
Uh-oh. Maybe he didn't want to because he liked what we were saying.
yeah, he was probably like, not enough Skibbity
On
Toilet.
principle, I cannot give that a thumbs down.
That's probably it.
Hey, Steve, why don't you hit us with the final thoughts sound?
It's time for our final thoughts.
I don't know. It's fucking late. Hit us with your final thoughts. No, the just final thoughts. Guest goes first, but if you have like a rating, if you want to do as well, that's perfectly welcomed.
Yeah. I mean, I can do it pretty easily because I did a letterbox. I think I'm just myself on letterbox. Cam Maitland. I said
Not time for plugs yet.
Sorry, no. I got other plugs. I'm doing personal plugs. I did 3 out of 5 because I do think it's like I think that you should probably watch this. It's good. I do think the director's cut is better than what was before. I know it's like it's nonsense no matter cut you watch, but if you throw it up on Tubi, I think you might get inspired and excited. And yeah, like I do think that there is this weird thing. Maybe I'm just fucking old millennial pilled, and I'm like, this is good. But you know, I'll bring in my 21-year-old Gen Z girlfriend, Gen Alpha. We'll talk about it. We'll see how it is. Age gap discourse.
Thigh gap, more like.
Well, no, thank you.
Okay.
I want whatever the opposite of that is.
That's just
Nightbreed. What I want is Nightbreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Porky.
Thank you.
My hinge is specifically set to Midian.
I got you, Steve.
I like the idea of a dating app letting you put Midian as your choice.
Yeah.
I only want Nightbreed.
Yeah.
All right.
Steve, what are your final thoughts for the hit film Nightbreed?
Also, how have we gone 3 hours and 2 minutes in that gun?
Working on my night
moves. Yeah, I put that all over social media today.
Okay, good. Thank
That
you,
was the
Jason.
song I used for all the
Sorry,
TikToks and the...
sorry to listen.
I was there with you all day.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I think for a movie about a fantasy world where people who dictate the rules of a society are the real monsters, which is basically just this movie, and the acceptance of everyone, anyone who feels othered and different is like what we crave as an audience. It's compelling, but I think, like we said, the world building is where it's at in this movie. And even if you just want to sit back and look at what you're being fed and imagine what could be, I think that's a fun exercise. As people who, the three of us watch movies all the time, probably multiple movies a week, if not a day, some of us. And that's a very fun part of movie watching, especially when you're in the fantasy and science fiction and horror realms, is imagining stuff. And that's one of the most fun bits of watching movies that I experience. And this one does it for me, even though it doesn't make sense, even though you could even call it bad at points. I have a lot of fun watching this every time I watch it, even when I'm watching the 3.5 hour version. I didn't hate watching it. Would I recommend watching it? The answer is no. I would say watch the director's cut. I think that's a really clean version between the Cabal cut and the Ultimate Cabal cut. And I've never seen the theatrical cut, so I can't speak to that. But
there's no reason to watch it. Honestly,
I think that the director's cut is where is a happy medium between everything. A happy median between everything.
Oh my god.
I think it's good, and if I had to give it a rating, I would give it not cutting your entire face off, but just cutting all the bits around your face off. Yeah.
Perfect. Also, thanks, Real Feels.
I mean, I don't want a meta game here, but Real Feels and I just followed each other on Letterboxd. So,
oh my god! Wow, that's a deep cut.
Can you guys follow me too?
Yeah, follow me as well. I haven't updated in a while. Anyway,
you gotta say what your username is, y'all.
That's true.
I think it's like probably Hey Did You? I think I put Hey Did You See This one, but like it doesn't.
Mine's Boba Blackfly, like BOBA Blackfly.
Both of us.
I bet you guys don't even have pro accounts.
I know. Why would I spend money?
I'm not a pro.
Oh,
amateur.
You found me on there? Oh my gosh! Oh my goodness! Oh my damn! Thank you. I'll follow you back. I'm gonna go back. I have Real Feels. If you follow me on Instagram at Spider Hero 9000, I think. I review movies there like separately from all this, which brings me to my review of this movie. I wrote a whole thing. I usually don't have a lot to say when I do this part. Like usually I wing it, but oh man, I had a lot to say. I think this is a good movie and has a lot of good ideas. I can almost guarantee the book is better though. There are 4 versions of this, which indicates there are a lot of ideas being left out of the version I watched. And in here, I made a note, maybe reference stuff we all talked about as far as what was left out. And I think we kind of covered that with Steve watching the Ultimate Cabal cut, Cam being familiar with the book and the comic books. I think we covered a lot of ground here tonight. The version I watched was a fine film and tells the story in a way that makes sense. It almost feels like a superhero or a fantasy story, which is fine. I feel it felt a little disjointed at the start and doesn't give a whole lot of meaningful setup that is paid off, and it rushes into the story. But I think this is okay for like what this thing is. And then I stop that idea right there and talk about how I liked the score a lot. Danny Elfman did Beetlejuice and Batman at the same time. I really enjoyed seeing the large amount of monsters in the movie. Is all practical. A remake of this with a more clear vision would be greatly appreciated. I think it sets up a sequel that never came, and wonder what the book covers as far as that goes. I also gave this a 3 out of 5. Interesting, Cam. The 3.5 hour cut is probably unnecessary, which I wrote even before I heard Steve talk about it. And then I give this movie Cabal from Nightbreed versus a Cabal from Mortal Kombat in the Land of the Espers stage from Final Fantasy VI.
At least one person got each one of those references somewhere. And a few got all three.
I forgot to do a funny. I forgot to say nine breeds at a night or whatever.
That's good. I like it.
I read this as Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat in this economy?
In this economy. So I guess that's the show tonight. What a great show.
Yeah, it was fun to tackle a weird movie with you guys.
Yeah, I liked that we had stuff to talk about this time, unlike last time where we were like, should we just
but also the next time, number 1, no fucking Craig Schiffer. Number 2, let's maybe do a good one.
Yeah, go back and watch our Fire in the Sky episode where we struggle for less than 2 hours to talk about it.
And a movie that I also think deeply affected my childhood and my brain. But
also Cabal is in that movie.
Yes. He's the fire in the sky.
He's Johnny No, he's like
the fire in our
like
hearts.
brother.
He drinks a lot of fire water. Is that okay to say?
No,
I don't
know. No, it's not. No.
But just before we get out of here, Cam, tell us about things that you have coming up, going on. What are your plugs? What are you plugging?
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole lot. I work, if you're in Canada, I work for the Canadian TV channel Hollywood Suite. We are available on cable and on demand on Prime Video. If you're not in Canada, just because I know the only person who may be listening is Real Feels Podcast in Bakersfield, California. If you go to hollywoodsuite.ca/originals, you can see a lot of the content we create. My main job, which is documentaries about film history and both showing pop culture and film and how they relate to one another. And we also have a podcast, which unfortunately we lost all our grants to. The granting system changed, but we did, about 5 years of a podcast where we talked about the weird trends in popular culture. What 70s year was like, hey, here's a bunch of trucker movies. What 70s year was like, hey, here's whatever. We kind of got into all of it and how pop culture and film talk to each other. That's a lot of what my job is. So yeah, Hollywood Suite, a year in film, both in video and podcast form. And you can find Hollywood Suite, SUITEE. No E. I don't know. I fucked it up. But it's on every platform. And my cool Skibbity Toilet Gen Z coworker does all our TikToks. So.
And I like each and every one of them.
They're fun. She gets it. She gets it.
Thank you, Cam. I appreciate you taking this ridiculous amount of time to talk about a ridiculous movie.
Listen, I regretted it, but also love you guys. And maybe we found in our... I've had many failed podcasts. We used to find that when a movie was actually really good, it was tougher to talk about. So
we both can identify with that. Our best content comes from when we rip a movie apart, but this was that fine line where we liked it, but
something is good in there, but it's fucked up.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we all agree we want to see a miniseries at the very
I would watch the shit out of a 10-part.
Are you listening? FX on Hulu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, what do you got boiling up on the old Proctor pot? The fuck is a Proctor pot?
Well, I'm slowly infecting YouTube as a voice actor. If you guys want to check any of my workouts, Arcane Archives, Dr. O, and Darth Theorist is probably the most predominant. I am doing tons of that right now, but you can also follow me on pretty much all social media platforms at Boba Blackfly, BOBA Blackfly. I'm an illustrator and a writer and a voice actor. I do it all. If you need anything, call me, message me. I can do it for you. I promise. A Nightbreed promise.
I'll give you some applause for that. Out of the three of us, I probably did the least amount. This is kind of my main thing here. Hey, did you see this one podcast? We go live each and every week on mainly Twitch at 8 p.m. Eastern, but we also go live on a lot of different platforms. So if you're catching us here, you can catch us pretty much anywhere where you can stream live too. Other than that, here in Toronto, I'm an announcer for a professional wrestling company, and you would think that would be like my main thing, but it's only once a month, so if you ever come to Toronto, or if you live in Toronto, come check that out. It's usually, third week of the month in the Great Hall on King. I don't know, man.
We're basically three losers that prove that being a professional announcer is not a job that exists anymore.
It's not a job that exists.
No,
I do it.
Between us, we try to get every shitty.
Yeah, we fight over all the jobs between the three of us.
We're deeply in. It's a living.
It's a living. And Fred Flintstone pulls on my fucking tail feathers again, and I don't destroy his face.
Oh, so you're the alarm at the factory.
Yes.
I always imagine myself as the garbage disposal.
I'll be like a car wash. They fill
you're the fax machine
full of water, and I squirt it out over the car or whatever.
It's a living.
It's a living.
But I would like to thank everybody who watched tonight. We had a pretty big showing. It was a fun episode, and I think at this point I'll get the last couple of videos here for us, Steve. But I think that there's just one question that needs to be asked. Cam, what is it?
Hey, did you see this one?
I don't have the spooky version loaded up here. I don't think.
Oh, that's why I was wondering what you were doing there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, that happens. I was just checking my grinder, and someone says they want to Nightbreed me. Do you guys know what that means?
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.